Alrighty. Shalom, shalom, shalom. Peace, peace, peace. All right. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of mine heart be acceptable in your sight. He is our strength and our redeemer, and it is in his name, which is his authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, protect, and protect today's message. Amen. Hola, mi nombre es Kofi. ¿Cómo está? Bonjour, je m'appelle Kofi. Ça va? Ni hao, namaste. Hosaina Kituya, Ohio. Hasi, Manut, Wagwan, Kamsamida, Aloha, Ciao, Ensemble, Privet, Kakasit, Anai, Kovai, Kochelet, in service of Christ, Mashinam Chi, Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Rayashan Shalom. I am Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time, but being a voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. Thank you for your presence. Prayerfully, all is well with thee and thine house. Hopefully, you are doing all right in the midst of this extreme weather and the snowstorm and everything. Prayerfully, all is well. Probably, we might even have some persons who have power outages and things of that nature. So, we're praying for you, hoping that you guys are able to stay as safe as possible. We are covered and layered and all types of stuff out here. So I'm doing well, but we give all praises once again to the Most High. And we're thankful and grateful for another opportunity to be in front of you guys one more again. To those who joined us for many different things, from the watch party to Shabbat school, to the women's meeting, to the men's meeting, to the podcast, with Minister Yassar preaching, international meeting, hashtag SOC University, Patreon items, etc., etc. Those who've been supporting in different ways all over the place, we appreciate you so very, very much. And we're thankful once again to be in front of you guys one more again. So we're going to continue to move and to grow and to do what we're supposed to do. Prayerfully, we'll have a little bit, and hopefully we're not having extreme weather outages for persons' lives and sake, and also too maybe we might not have as many persons on as usual, but we'll see what's going on in the meantime. If you are where there's tough winter going on, specifically in the United States, everywhere of course, but I know specifically of the weather storm that is supposed to be record breaking. I'm prayerfully you guys are staying safe. If you have to make a choice between your safety and a check, I get it, but you might want to choose your safety. If you're able to share, subscribe, hit the notification tab, etc., feel free to do so. And we're hoping and praying for you that all is well with you, that you're staying warm, that you're staying safe, and that you're staying obedient to the word of the Most High, even in the midst of tough situations. That being said, we give our honor and praise unto the Most High once again. We give our praise and honor to Him. For my wife, the Honorable Maya, who lives a life that is able to be honored. As always, you can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. Not A-N-D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She is a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. To the moderators, ministerial staff, SOC, Lottie Dyer, everybody, first time listening, one time many, whatever platform you're joining us on. We thank you so much for spending some time with us as always. And we're excited, we're grateful. Thank you to those who are continuing. January 26th is when we were supposed to have notice. Or if you haven't let us know, please let us know if you're planning on coming and meeting up with us over in Eastern Tennessee for Passover. So prayerfully we'll be able to see you guys. Even if you don't get to us, there's a little bit of space left. So I am going to need to make sure that I start getting the list and making sure I'm obedient to those who are running things. But if you are somebody who's looking at possibly spending some time with us, or, obviously, of course, we'll be on virtually, but those who physically will come on down and spend some time with us over there, we love to have you and hope that you can join us for a great time at Yam Pasachi. So we thank you all again. We're appreciative once again. And we know that, once again, without you guys, even your viewership, what you do in front of the scenes, behind the scenes, the things that you do, even just being on with us, supporting us, even just now in the way that you are, we know that we cannot do this without the help of a person such as yourself. And so we're grateful and thankful to be with you guys one more again. So thank you again. If you're able to, once again, share this with somebody else, let them know what's going on. We're thankful and grateful for you guys doing that in advance. And prayerfully, the Most High is Barak. He's blessing you. And this word, this series we've been doing has been something that has helped you to be able to comprehend the word of Yah a little bit better. That being said, we're about to get started. If you can rise your feet in reverence of Yahweh's word, or however you're able to reverence the word of Yah, we thank you for doing so in advance. And excuse me. And basically, we ask you to do that to respect the word. Let's go ahead and say shalom to everybody and get started. Aman. How's everybody doing? So as you stand up, we're going to start today by starting off at Revelation chapter 6. We're going to read verses 3 and 4. So if you're able to turn to Revelation chapter 6. And we're going to read verses 3 and 4. Once you have it, say, Aman, I got it, I'm with you, I'm listening. Also, mic check, 1, 2, can everybody hear me? Yes, no, maybe so. Hear me, see me? Yes, no, maybe so. Prayerfully so. And let's say shalom to everybody real quick. How you doing, Sister Beck? How you doing, Sister Carla? Brother Sharon, Brother Keith, Elder Anais praying for you. Hopefully you're feeling better. Sister Allison, you got it? All right, cool. How you doing? Oh, man. Queenly Boston, I'm having a moment again. Oh, I had it that one day. Now I don't have it anymore. Regina? No? Oh, man. And it, right? Oh, no. That might be the wrong person, actually. I take that back. I don't know. I'm going to get it. It takes me a minute to get these TikTok names. It is. Okay. Cool. I got that one. All right. How you doing? Omega Tunde, Double OG, Triple OG, Zabilan. Hopefully I'm saying that correctly. BPH, Dinake, Joe, Lottie Dye, everybody. Awesome. All right. So we're going to go ahead and get ready to get started in just a little bit and do our Bible pledge. So if you're able to rise to your feet in reverence of Yahweh's word, or however you're able to reverence the word, and get ready to put your right hand in the air, your device or your Bible in the air, and just repeat after me. I'll be right back. Get ready to do our Bible pledge and jump in. Also, too, I just realized I didn't finish getting the water together. Lemon water, the water. Alrighty, go ahead and get started with our Bible pledge. You can just repeat after me. This is my Bible. This is my sword, and this will I trust. For Yahshua is Lord. No sword of God shall ever be heard. For this is my Bible, and this is Yah's word. Hashem Yahweh. Amen. Was in Yahweh Shem, his name is authority. Let it be done unto us. Let us read Revelation chapter 6, verses 3 and 4. It reads as follows. It says, and when he had opened the second seal, I heard the second beast say, come and see. And there went out another horse that was red, and power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from Aratz, to take peace from the earth, to take shalom from the earth, and that they should kill one another. And there was given unto him a great sword. We've just read Revelation chapter 6, verses 3 and 4. May Yahshua Barak, those who readeth it, heareth it, and keepeth it. You may be seated to go back to what you're doing in the presence of the Most High. I'm sorry, how you doing, Sister Sheila? I forgot to say shalom to Sister Sheila as well. So today, we're going to focus in on the second horseman. So we've been doing this series now, hashtag We Be the Nation is what we're going by, transitioning from 2025 into well, the end of 2025 into the beginning of the actual new year, which is happening on March the 27th, I believe, as far as the Israelite calendar, as far as the biblical calendar. And we're honing in this year, if you will, of the Gregorian calendar 2026, hashtag We Be the Nation, making sure that we do things through nationality, through a national prism, through a kingdom prism, making sure that we do things properly and decent and in order. And so we've been going over Revelation for a little while, basically since January the 1st. And we've now gotten into these horsemen. We started with the first horseman. We went over on yesterday, actually, after we did some Q&A. We discussed whose revelation this is. And how you doing, Lucius? How you doing, Yummy Day? I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly. How you doing, Anthony? And everybody coming in. Is it Tyrant or Tiran? Not sure how you pronounce it, but yes, it is written. So we've been talking about this revel, to rejoice. Not revelation, although things are revealed in Revelation, but revel actually means to rejoice. So the T-I-O-N makes it a noun, meaning that revelation is something that the persons of Yah, the people of Yah, can rejoice in. The things of Yah, the things that are going to happen in this, we rejoice. And the places that we are in should be places that we put together so that we can be safe to rejoice. And by the way, remember that this word in Greek is the word they use in the Greek for this book is, or this vision that's written down is apocalypse, because for those that do not know what's going on culturally and do not follow the word, you should be afraid. And even the original chazan, or some people try to say chazan, but chazan is actually how we pronounce it in the Hebrew. And chazan, or the original, right, Hebrew. And chazan is actually speaking specifically to a wall of, or a wall of protection, right? If we're talking about the connotation, the characters, being together, the sounds of it, the wall of protection, right? That allows us to be in something that is our weapon and cultivates, while at the same time perfects us. So when we think of Revelation culturally speaking, we're thinking of it a lot differently than the average person would. As we say all the time, there's a saying, I know persons don't like this word, they like to use barak or baruk instead, which is actually proper. That being said, there's a saying sometimes, read your Bible, it will bless you or it will barak you. And we know that when reading comprehension and reading literacy, you must have the comprehension correct, meaning you must be able to comprehend what's going on through the proper prism, right? So if you're unable to check out what's going on properly through the prism of what's being discussed, then you're going to have a hard time and a tough time with what's going on and being able to comprehend this word. Amen. So, and how you doing, P. Shaw and T. Tunicus? Everybody on today. So we're going to make sure that we go through this prism properly, right? You said it's called a 9-volt. I guess that's clever. I mean, that's not even the way this one is set up, and I'm actually trying to get it cut out of our stuff. We have a very old home. We have a home that's 100+ years old. So the way that the fire alarm is actually designed, even though you hear it's not there, but I'll just do this one time for everybody. It's going to chirp the whole time, and if you're not able to hear anything outside of a chirp, well, then you're probably the same person that's not able to hear anything outside of your limited view. So, but I get it. It's bothersome, especially for those who are real men or real Americans or whatever that stuff is. So you do what you do, right? But you'll hear it. You'll hear it over and over again. All right. So if that's something that you can't stand or something that's too much for you to be able to handle, and it causes, the snow to melt every time, then it is what it is. All right. But and so as we continue to go on, right? As you continue to go on, right? And as we continue to go on, I'm not tripping off y'all today. You can be on for a little bit, or you'll just go ahead and get kicked off. Either way. But yeah, so as we go on through this today, we're talking about Revelation chapter 6, verse 3 and 4, right? Where we talk about the second horseman. All right, now the first horseman we went over yesterday. It's important that we comprehend what's going on in the connectivity of all this. And it's not our revelation. This is Christ's revelation. It's given through an angel to John. John gives it to the messengers who are supposed to give it to those persons who have an ear to hear the word. All right, how you doing, TJ? And so when those who have an ear to hear right? This is for you, right? Those in Ephesus, if you lost your first love and it's time to get back on track, let's get back on track. Those who are in Smyrna and you've forgotten who you are, but really you think you're poor, but really you are rich. And there are persons who are trying to tell you you are not who you are, but you need to take back hold of who you are, take back hold of culture, of language, etc., etc. This is for you. For those who have ears to hear, to where maybe you were in a situation where you got into Balaam doctrine and persons that are paid to basically speak against their own interests and the interests of their people, right? And to be stumbling blocks so that you would not receive what the actual tenor of the word is supposed to be. All right, but you're going to get back into that and get away from Nicolaitans doctrine as well. This is for you. Those of you who are in the assembly of Thyatira, so to speak, where you've been part of a situation where a person sell their souls and sell out to try and get things that are not even for our people, and now it's time for us to come back into the kingdom. This is for you. For those who are in the assembly of Sardis, right, who deal with things where we attach all types of different spirits to the word and try to make it work, including even gladiatorial games or sports or different things that we use to distract persons from what's actually going on. This is for you. For those who have an ear to hear that are in Philadelphia, to where in spite of all the different things that are being presented to you, you still have remained faithful and remembered who you are, and know that there is a door that's open to you that no man can shut, and a door that's shut for you that no man can open. Well, this is for you, right? It's time for us to teach others how to worship, and even those who have become part of the world but need to come out, who are Laodicean, right? We right. If you're in that group, then hey, it's time for you to be able to get a word that's be able to help you to make sure that you are not wishy-washy, that we know whether you're hot or cold. Some of you got into a place where your lives are so inundated with everything and everything's interwoven that nobody knows what you stand for. Do you stand for righteousness? Do you stand for more morality? Do you stand for immorality? Right? Do you think that our children should be protected? Do you think that our children should see butts in all over the screen? Right? Do you think that you should hear what Christ says and be obedient 100%? Or are you trying to do Christ consciousness and be able to say, whenever I want to pick and choose what Christ believes in, I'll pick and choose it, but I won't do it holistically or wholly, right? And how you doing, Wabi? Thanks for being on. Shalom to you as well. And Salah, right? Pause and think about that, right? So the one who sits on the throne in Revelation 4, who has authority to open the seals in Revelation 5, allowed us to be able to learn what we learned yesterday about Revelation chapter 6, verses 1 and 2, right? Where we see those who are conquering and conquers, these conquistadors. And now we get into Revelation chapter 6, verses 3 and 4, which is our focal verses for the day. Our focal verses for the day, once again, Revelation chapter 6, verses 3 and 4. We've already read them. And so in dealing with this, right, in Revelation chapter 6, verse 3 and 4, we are in a position and in a place to where we see very clearly that we are in a situation in the eschatology, in the study of the last days or the study of the times that will last. We are seeing that there's not only those who conquer, but underneath those who conquer, now there's a second horseman or a second group or a second type of phase that must take place that we must be aware of, right? And first things first, there's a callback. So it tells us that the second beast, right, came and said unto John, come and see. The what? The second beast comes to John and says, come and see. So this second beast, it says, come and see, is the second. So how do we identify, first of all, what a beast is? Anybody recall what a beast is? Right? Anybody recall what the beast is? How you doing, Bird Bard? Right? Or what a beast represents, rather. Right? A beast in scripture, especially in dreams and visions, right, represent governance. Right? So when we have the four beasts, so now we have to identify when it says the second beast, which second beast is it talking about that says come and see? Right? So it's not the second beast. I'm on, Brother Keith. So it's not the second beast that comes from Revelation chapter 13. This is right, nor is it the first beast of Revelation 13. This is the second beast that's coming from Revelation chapter 4, which we went over already in the series. So in Revelation chapter 4, what's going on there with this second beast? What's happening with the second beast in Revelation chapter 4? What is it that we need to recognize and realize is going on with this second beast of Revelation chapter 4? Well, the first beast, if you remember, was used for the way of governance is the angelic figure with 6 wings, right? 6 meaning something nailed in place that protects us. Also, too, It has eyes all over the place, right? In the front, in the back, and even on the insides. And therefore, it has vision to be able to tell us to be always watchful. And then you have, it has the head of a lion, the lion of the, as we would say today, even though tribe is not actually a great word to use, but nevertheless, the lion of the tribe of Judah, right? So Yehovah, Judah, praise, kingdom, right? Yechadashah, all these things coming together. And this lion, right? This lion, Yehashua, the Messiah, Yahusha, some of you still say, JC, right? But, Christ, our Messiah, he governs through what? Through Judah, through the throne, right? He's the one who sits on the throne and is allowed to govern through that because of even his lineage, and also because of the praise, and also because of the worship, and also because his kingdom that is even before the foundations of this world, right? And he makes sure that we recognize that there's conquerors who are trying to conquer, right, and try to get you and I to come outside of what the will of Yah is. We went through Matthew chapter 24, verses 1 through 14 yesterday to further explain that. So today, right, when we focus on Revelation chapter 6, verses 3 and 4, it tells us the second beast. And Revelation chapter 4 now speaks. This beast has the head of a calf. Now, there's a lot of stuff that we know. So before we talk about the second horseman and what the horse represents, what the horseman represents, what's going on in society today, first things first, you have to look at the second beast is the one who says, come and see, right? By the way, he doesn't say just see. He says, come and see. Very important distinction, because many persons will see from afar or not look at things or not come up on things and not give proper action. But we are supposed to what? Come and see. How you doing, Elder Tamara? Prayerfully you're feeling all right, right? So we are supposed to come and see. We're supposed to move forward. We're supposed to attach ourselves. We're supposed to be active, right? We're supposed to be active. Come and see, right? And a lot of persons will let all types of wild stuff go. They'll talk bad about the world, about the system, etc., but they will not move properly. But we are not supposed to just see it from afar and have no participation. We are supposed to move. Be active. How you doing, King Aries? How you doing? Be brave, right? We are supposed to be active. How you doing? Emoshe Tesfaye and Antipopo, right? And anybody else is coming on. If I miss you on any of these platforms, charge it to my head and not to my heart, right? So the second way that we're governed, right, or second system of governance causes us to move and see certain things, right? And this one has eyes and the wings and everything, but this one, and is also before the throne and has bowed down to the Messiah, right? The authority goes to our Messiah, goes to the Lamb that was slain. But the second one has the head of a calf. Now, this is something that's crucial in many different ways as far as the symbolic nature of this word. So, number one, the first character of the Alavites or the Aleph Bet is Alav or Aleph, which means father, source, strength, right? Abba, cultivation, but also means ox. So we have a baby ox, we have a calf. Now, right? But why is this a baby calf and not just a grown ox? Well, because if you look at the baby calf, we came out of Kemet, we came out of bondage. And when we came, right, we're warned over and over again, by the way, especially those of you who did the watch party with us yesterday. We started watching Reclaiming the Throne again. That's kind of a yearly thing we do, right? And we saw that a lot of us have this mindset where we always have to keep saying that everything goes back to Kemet. Everything goes back to Kemet or goes back to Egypt, because that's all that at one point we really had to say when we finally when we finally got to a place to where we couldn't keep telling the lie to ourselves, and others couldn't keep performing the lie, telling us, hey, the persons of Egypt or the persons of Kemet were always, what you see today, or basically at one point we thought they were straight up, using the colonial and social construct, we thought they were straight up white people, right? And therefore, since that was taken away, and we were like, okay, we got some stuff, and we can see the person there have woolly hair, and they were swarthy, and we know that this and that, etc. We said, okay, we're going to come through. A lot of Afrocentricity is always attached to Kemet, right? Yes, Yahashua the Messiah, he loves us all. Amen, right? How you doing, TG? How you doing? We move according. So we had this mindset that everybody got to be Kemetic. Everybody got to be Kemetic. Everybody got to be Egyptian. Everybody's got to be Mizraim. But the problem with this is that for us as a people, right, this represents bondage. And before we had the same mindset, right, to where we came into connection, married into, thought that we could have stuff connected to them through the Shepherd Kings. We come into this mindset, right, through the Hiscos. We come into this mindset saying everything's going to be all right and you guys will accept us in. Matter of fact, even if you don't accept us for who we truly are because you guys hate shepherds, ultimately you'll give us the land of Goshen, right? And we'll go ahead and stay in lower Kemet, in lower Egypt, and we'll be fine there until all of a sudden when our numbers grow and we become who we are, and we still haven't gone against anything, but because we're simply in the promise going to continue to multiply as Avlet, as Hebrew is supposed to, even by name, by authority. Next thing you don't want no parts of us, and now we need to be enslaved. How you doing, Sister Deborah? Right? So we had this issue that pops up, right? We had this weird thing that pops up to where persons are upset with us, even than who are our own family. That was even our family members doing this to us by marriage, right? By blood, by DNA, doing this to our own people. E1B1B going against E1B1A, if you will. So we had like this, same thing that happens today, to where we're looking for something and we're like, hey, just include us in something, even if it's not really our culture, if it's not really the culture of the Most High, if it's not really what the Word says, right? We have this weird thing, fascination with, we're going to try to still say that we must be of this culture, and we're still going to try to say everything has to come through that, even though that's not the case, right? So in the wilderness, when we were going through the wilderness, we deal with the golden calf, right? In the wilderness, we deal with the golden calf, right? And that golden calf was built when Moses simply went to get closer to the Most High, and because he was taking too long, and even though we had seen the miracles, we had seen the water, be assuaged, and to see to see us walk on dry land, and we had seen the power of Passover. We had seen the death angel Passover. We had seen frogs take over. We had seen, water turn to blood. We had seen dust of the ground turn into flies. We had seen cattle, and we had seen these plagues even have a demarcation to where if you were of the Most High, he protected you. And if you were not of the Most High, he did not protect you. We saw all those things, and yet still, when we had an opportunity, we went back to what our default setting was. Our default setting was an enslaved mind, right? Our default setting was an enslaved mind. So we built the golden calf. We made an idol for worship, and we idolized what we knew. And that's very important that you catch that in this, right? Because we will idolize what we know, even if we are aware that what we know is not necessarily what we should be into, but we will idolize what we know, right? This is when we talked about this before, using the term, talking about nostalgic trauma. You can go through a very traumatic experience, a traumatic childhood, a childhood that's against your best intentions, a childhood or even familial bonds, exes, etc. All these different things that actually should cause you to go away from negativity. And yet, even though going away from negativity, and although yet still going away from negativity, you will still try your best to trauma bond with others through negativity. We'll talk about that quite a bit, but there are a lot of persons who will trauma bond, right? And say, well, I go through the traumatic, it's the traumatic things, it's those things, I'm not coming out of curses, not breaking generational curses, not breaking generational ties to things that are hurtful and harmful, but we bond over those things. And this is why we have now even FBA against Afrocentricity, and Afrocentricity and FBA against Garveyism and Garveyites who are against this and that, etc. The third, we're against each other because we trauma bond with others so much so that now we don't even accept certain traumas, and we'll even come up with excuses, and we'll use the same conquering techniques and the same war tactics that were used against us. We'll use them against each other. This is Willie Lynch syndrome. Right, all these things coming together in a nutshell. And how you doing, Perfect Tales? How you doing, DK Cosmo? Everybody coming in. So we go through quite a bit. And quite a bit of trauma, and quite a bit of things that cause us to do this. And so you have those who are waiting for Moses. They say he's taking too long. And since he's taking too long, even though you're still being taken care of, even though you've been free, even though you have an opportunity to come into the knowledge of who the Most High is, rather than doing those things, you go to the high priest. They went to Aaron and they said, hey, change this thing up. Put this back to where we're used to. I know we're free now, but even though we're free, we want to go ahead and worship Kemet while saying Kemet delivered us from Kemet. In other words, there was a calf there was calf worship, even by the Hiskos, right? There was calf worship because there are different dynasties when we talk about Kemet, right? But they say, hey, make for us this spirit, right? We know that Allah, that the Most High, He is one, but at the same time, make for us a golden calf, right? So it's the calf that's more important than the ox. So here we have in Revelation chapter 4 a representation of that coming together to where we see all these different things, right? And we have all this different stuff coming together to where we have all these different things coming together to where there's a belief system and Moses comes back down and has to even ask the Levites as well who stood with these persons, right? Who stood with them, who was against them. He has to see what's going on because persons will be led if we're not careful, right? By persons who are in there trying to take us back to something that we've been delivered from. And a lot of us want to go backwards into something that we've been delivered from. So here you have Misvaim, right? Here you have Kemet, right? How you doing, Sister Jennifer? How you doing, Andreas? How you doing, Noodles? So here you have these persons who've been delivered from Misvaim or Mazadaim or Kemet or what most of us know today as Egypt, right? And been delivered from these persons. So when things went from the Hyksos into the line of Ramses and things of that nature, who later on through that lineage you get, through Ramses the first, even though it's not Ramses the first, but through that lineage, right? You get to all the stuff that's going on and happening and things of that nature. And I never knew the connection you had. And persons are trying to go back to those persons who enslaved them, right? This is a war tactic that's used that even when you come out of bondage, right? Even when you come out of bondage, the war tactic is used to have you to do the bidding. So if you're going to enslave somebody, the goal at some point is to make sure that the person's actually enslaved themselves. You need to, right? If you are dealing with Nazis, right? The SS, they didn't call themselves Nazis per se, but that being said, right? The SS, and you're dealing with persons who are under that rhetoric, under that Hitler type rhetoric and stuff like that. When they're putting persons in concentration camps, the persons who are burying and burning and offing the people are not the SS. It's the ones who are under the SS. You get them to perform these duties on themselves, right? And therefore, it even helps the SS to have this weird place of cognitive dissonance. We're not doing it to them, they're doing it to them, while also being able to treat them as subhuman. And you have them do it until they wear themselves out. You have them off themselves until they get to a point to where they can no longer work, right? You get the ones that are stronger to become weakened by destroying the weak, right? It's important that we catch this mindset because this stuff still goes on today. See, once again, as we said, when you talk about horses within the culture of Yechada Sha'al, when you talk about horses, horses are dealing with what? When we talk about horses, when horses are out of the stables, in our culture, that means that you're at war, right? It was not the norm. I'm not saying that you could not see a horse per se walking around Israel, but it was not the norm to see a bunch of horses all over the place. Right, it was not the norm to just see horses tied up, like it's the Wild West or something like that. We have to get into a cultural context. When we talk about horses being brought out, you're always talking about wartime situation, right? As we talked about yesterday, right? As we talked about yesterday, you can run with the horses is not just saying even the supernatural that you can run with the horses, but also it's talking about a time of war. And how you doing, if I didn't say so earlier, how you doing, right? In Shulan and Sunstand. So it is important, it's very important that we recognize about the fact that when these horsemen are brought out, we have to recognize as being things revealed, if you will, or unveiled, or when the seals are being taken off, right, allowed by the one whose signet is upon the scroll. It's important that we recognize what's going on as far as what's being revealed is that you are at war as part of the context. Right? You were at war as part of the context. Okay? So the first horseman that we talked about yesterday conquers for the sake of conquering. That's what they do, right? They have a crown. Now, if you notice, if you do some research, right, when you read Revelation chapter 6, verses 1 through 8, you'll discover that in all four horsemen, only one horse has the crown. Possibly even looks like a wreath. We're not sure, because the word can mean crown like you put like this, or crown that could be a wreath. And if you're talking about wreath, it actually makes sense because it goes with all those things we talked about with the 7 assemblies earlier, to where you have a wreath, but the wreaths are made up of different herbs and different plants, etc., that you would put in, right? And you're putting these things in, each one representing a different spirit, right? So for example, if you saw a wreath that had olives in it, then those olives, they represent Zeus, right? That might not be something we know. So each one, right, represents something different. I forget which one, but there was one that they put in that represents Aphrodite, or one that represents Artemis, or one that represents Athena. So when you see these different things in the headpiece, they were telling you something. So we're not sure if this is a crown, or if this is a wreath, because the word they use can be used for both. That being said, the first horseman is ultimately representing the ones who conquer and are in charge. Now, the second horseman comes after that. And what does the second horseman do underneath, right, under the authority of the first horseman? First horseman has authority, right? How you doing, Eddyville? Shalom to everybody. And if you're using the Israelite calendar, Shabbat Shalom to you, right? So then you have the first horseman that comes out. And then after the second horseman comes out and does what? The second horseman is one that is on a red horse, red representing passion, right? Representing the passion, the heart. So now the heart of this thing, the heart of the system. How do we get this system? What do we get persons passionate about, or what is the passion of the system? How do they run things, right? Well, it says that this red horse on top of that horse is one that was given power to take peace from the earth, to remove shalom, aras, to take peace away from the earth. Salah. So now you conquer folk. Those who conquer for conquering's sake, and they make sure that they keep this by releasing a spirit, if you will, or releasing a mindset, or taking over by removing peace from the earth. Not just removing peace from the earth in Revelation 6:4, but they take peace from the earth that they should kill, they should take the lives, unalive one another. So once again, it's not just we take peace and put things in place so that you will off each other. How you doing, Minister Castleberry? Shalom. How you doing, Sister Udelis? Right? Hola, gracias por tu presencia siempre. Right? You use the second beast to take peace away from the earth. This is the usage of the second beast. So the second beast is there to take peace away and to institute systems and institute enough fear to where you and I are supposed to hate each other and keep fighting each other, right? Even if it comes down to, like we were talking about earlier, right? If you study Tariq Nasheed, who has a lot of great stuff, right? Really should be more like Tariq Nasheed, but nevertheless, if you study Tariq Nasheed, that's not his real, name, but whatever. He doesn't have to use a straw man. And if you see him, he starts off with a lot of great stuff, but you'll discover that a lot of things he's using for the FBA stuff, once again, if you FBA, be FBA. But if you use words such as tether, right? Maybe you're into enough of what I'm talking about, or you haven't studied enough of what I'm talking about yet. But when you hear him use the word tether, you might not recognize how harmful and hateful and spiteful that word is. Matter of fact, before it was being used, which it is now, the last, I guess, somewhat almost coming up on a decade or so, before it was used against those who are trying to attach themselves to FBA, the word was actually used to be able to talk about those who are of Hispanic, we'll call it for today, Hispanic descent. Grifters of Hispanic descent. Basically being used to say, hey, those persons trying to come across the border, they're tethers. If you don't know what FBA is, that's the foundational Black American piece. So when you hear somebody say they're a foundational Black American, right, instead of saying basically the mindset is, I don't care about Garveyites, I don't really care about Africans, y'all are smelly, y'all are, they use the same rhetoric against everybody else, and it's become a thing to where who cares about anybody? All you guys do is come over from other countries, even the Caribbean now. You come over from the Caribbean, you come over from South America, you come over from Africa, you come over from England, and you talk smack about us. And so we don't want nothing to be with you. You're not us, we're not you. F y'all type thing. Which, by the way, some of that is actually factual. Because, even a lie has to have some truth in it, right? But a half truth is always still a whole lie. And but it is true that there are persons who do that. Not everybody, but there's enough, right? It's like saying, when they say every year you'll have persons to come out, and I'm not a Republican or Democrat. I'm in the kingdom. That being said, every year you'll have them say, well, more black persons every year um, are becoming Republican and voting Republican. That's not true at all. I mean, it's true, I guess, in a small sense, but for real, it's very, very untrue. How would we be able to prove this or look at this? Well, even if you just look at statistics, um, black persons still vote like men and women, by the way, because they have us fighting each other on that too. But for those of you who vote, black men and women still vote like 90 something percent Democrat, like 95%. So even if there's like a point something percent that votes more Republican, then they put that all over the news. And it's designed, the same news program, by the way, it's owned by the same persons who own CNN and all that. Ultimately, the corporations are the same persons who own like Fox News and stuff like that, or at least are so tethered, using that term, to each other that you might as well consider them to be the same anyways. It's two wings on the same bird, but everybody has this weird thought process and mindset and thinking that all this stuff is whatever, right, is messed up, or that it's everybody else's fault, or it's this person, or you guys, or the black men, if you had voted, or the black women, if you had gotten yourself together, we would have they have us fighting. See, that we only think sometimes about the war piece, as far as like, yes, we do know that persons are still in Vietnam. They still send your special forces over to Vietnam. Yes, they are fighting in Russia. Yes, they are fighting in India. Yes, they are fighting in Venezuela. Yes, they are fighting in Iran and for the Israelis and all stuff to the, yes, those things are there, Ukraine, etc. Those things still exist. Greenland, trying to see if we're going to purchase it or not, if you consider yourself being American. Yes, that stuff does exist, but we forget about the infighting. See, the person who conquers, right, the true persons, the 1% of the 1% of the 1%, they have set up a system to where now they get to throw in all these war tactics and they have us offing each other. The focus is not the enemy. The focus is each other. And Paul warned us about this, right? We have the assembly of Ephesus. Who's this supposed to be preached to? Well, Paul preached to the actual assembly of Ephesus, and he made the point to say in there that we wrestle not against flesh and blood. In his epistle to them, in his letter to them, he said, our fight is not against flesh and blood, against each other, but it's against principalities. It's against the law first mentioned. How you doing, Sister Taylor? How you doing, Sister Greta? It's against the law first mentioned. It's against, right? Our fight is not against each other, even though that's what the persons are trying to do. Every time we start to get anything that builds up to where it actually has power, the goal is to use us or the inside to off each other. Persons forget this. With the Black Panther Party, there you could say there were so-called white persons that were in the Black Panther Party, but a lot of persons don't know there was a Black Panther Party and a White Panther Party. Right? We don't talk about that. The White Panther Party, right, decided that, hey, they can't really be part of the Black Panther Party, but they want to help. So what they would do is anything the Black Panthers came with and said, this is what we need to do, them saying, hey, well, we're all together anyways, they would say, if I can use what I have to be able to get certain things done that you cannot get done, we'll get it done. Right, and we won't try to split it up. We'll be one party. So even though you could say there was a Black Panther and White Panther Party, technically it was a part of the same movement that was able to get into doors and make sure that we could utilize and operate as a society. But when we talk about Black Panther Party, we never bring that up, or how you got to think about this. The Black Panthers were making sure that children were getting food. We forget that there were so-called white persons that were helping them to get children food. And that Black Panthers were making sure that they were getting hospitals and stuff together. We forget that there were so-called white hospitals that were helping them to be able to do these things, right? So if you talk about the Black Panthers having what now has become in your school systems, like after-school lunch or after-school programs or breakfast or free lunch, etc., in your schools, yeah, that was a Black Panther Party thing, but there also means that there have to be persons within the system that say, yes, we would work with you, and we believe that what you're doing is something that's a righteous cause, right? But you hear us today, and we've been even cut off to learn how to fight each other within that. Matter of fact, if you look at Bobby Seals and you look at Dr. Huey P. Newton, you see that one of the reasons Black Panther Party falls off is because of them infighting and because of a lot of things that CIA is doing even with them, and also too because of some drug issues and stuff that Huey might have had, Dr. Huey might have had. But there's some things, but it's infighting. The goal is to get you to infight. If you look at the Crips, right? A Crip and a Blood, both were gangs, but they weren't really what we would call gangs at first. They were designed what? To make sure that they protected the streets. Right? To make sure that they protected the streets. Right? So, and yes, it can't. There's obviously gray area to even what I'm saying, but ultimately, what I'm saying, you see what I'm saying, is correct, and we'll fight over. Oh no, this and blah blah blah. Look, okay, what I'm ultimately trying to get to is, hey, like these persons were together, and so what happens is we have even the thing that happens in nowadays where we start to grow in any way, shape, or form, and the goal is to say, I need to be in charge of, rather than what can we do as a society. Right? Even what I don't know how recently this is, and I don't really even recall his name. A guy who's running for governor somewhere um, is in Congress and was, or at least he was running for governor, something like that. A so-called black man running for governor somewhere, and he tried to be the face of a bill in Congress, talking about how wrong it is that persons in Washington D.C. That young boys in D.C. really he's focusing on black men, young black men, um, are at up to age 25 are allowed to be treated like juveniles in certain type of things that happen in court and certain types of things that they might be guilty of. And so he was saying how wrong this is, right? And the reason why they have that in DC is because, first of all, it was even Chocolate City, right? And you had Marion Barry who had his problems, but you had persons who looked out for us. And even if you don't like, Mayor Gray and some others who have come, before and after him, there is something to be said for the fact that they did look out for their own to a certain degree. All of them did, right? In different ways. Some of them maybe not even as much as what I'd like to believe. But when you study this, you'll discover that, yeah, because of that and because of knowing that men's brains, really human brains, really, but, boys, especially like until about age 25, there's certain studies and statistics that are out there to tell us and to show us how they need time to develop. And we should not just automatically be like, age 18, that's it. And really, for a lot of them, age 12, age 13, you're going away. And even if we say you're a juvenile, juvy's going to be treated like we treat prisons, So, and then we're going to put you on the street and have you go in and out of juvie and then in and out of prison. So they give persons second chances. And I don't recall this guy's name. How you doing, babe? My wife is on the Honorable Mind. As always, check her out on TikTok, YouTube, and the website at Bloom and Flourish. Love you, babe. Thank you for being on. And how you doing, Brother Cole? So, in all these different things, we kind of forget this stuff, right? But this guy is up there, who's talking, and somebody had to bring out and say, hey, why are you bringing this out and saying you need to lower the stuff? Why don't we talk about the fact that you, brother, right, when you were coming up, I believe in the Carolinas, and you, who were the father of immigrants, right, who are doing this anti-immigrant thing and anti-black thing, you who are a so-called black man, why are you up there, of all people, of all persons? And here it is that you have the same background. Matter of fact, as a teenager, you got in trouble for basically selling or maybe possessing or selling, the MW, right? You say one word for M, you flip it over, you say it with a W in front, right? But you were that guy, and then you got in trouble again when you were an older teenager, and then you got in trouble again as an adult, right? And yet you were given 3 chances to be able to make sure that you got your life in order, and you became a member of Congress and are now running to see if you would become governor. Yet you're telling other men who are coming from behind you that they shouldn't have the same opportunity. Right? When we see something like that, we got to start looking at you a certain way, right? But this is part of what's going on here, Revelation chapter 6, verse 3 and 4, to where we are the system is designed to get us to be at war with ourselves and carry out the dictatorial mindset of our oppressor. Right? We've been conditioned to where, right? For example, A lot of persons, when they say to me, state your source, what they mean is give us somewhere where a so-called white person agrees with it, touched and agreed, and wrote it out. Right? If I tell you, well, here, and we don't need that for other persons. Other persons can come on and say stuff that we have no reference point for, but it's okay. Right? And we still live by that system. We live in a system of oppression. So we do that to each other, and we do not talk about that. Right here in Revelation chapter 6, verse 3 and 4, once again, that's our focal verses for today. It tells us in verse 4 that the one who sat thereon, he's there to take peace from the earth. How do you take peace from the earth? You take peace from the earth so that we would, or why would you do that? You do that so that we would take the lives of one another. And he was given a sword. Sword also too is very important because the sword mentioned earlier in Revelation is talking about the word, right? It's talking about the word of Yah. So here we have persons who are trying to even use the word, trying to use spirituality, trying to use the Bible, right, to ensure that we will now use it to take each other out. And that's why no matter if it's been Christianity, no matter if it's been Muslim, no matter if it's been followers of the way, if it's been Hebrew Israelites, if it's been Buddhist, if it's been whatever, we use the word, you use canon. Yes, you do. All of us have, right? Or fine, if you're not a person, all of these groups are guilty of having persons tell you what your belief system is and then tell you to show you how to use that belief system to use it one against the other. How you doing, Sister Tamika? And that's just straight up what has happened historically for all of us worldwide. The word has been used, right? Whatever your canonical value is, we can look somewhere and say how it was used to influence and get persons to fight one another, right? We've been duped into a mindset that says we must fight one another, and somehow fighting one another is more important than living for one another and living with one another. And that's ultimately what's still going on today. This is what we're dealing with in Revelation chapter 6, verses 3 and 4. Is we're so busy fighting each other and fighting for the one who wants you to have nothing and takes. And while you're busy fighting and say, like, so going back to the FBA stuff real quick, right? So going back to the FBA thing, hear what I'm saying. If you go and you look, and not just Tariq Nasheed, I forget there's a woman who's very high up in ranks in their group as well. If you do some research, you'll discover that they actually work with racist white supremacists. I didn't say all white persons. I said if you do your research diligently, you will discover that they work with racist white supremacists. How you doing, Brother Dwayne? You'll see that very quick, that these persons work with racist white supremacists. They actually work with the same persons who have put together systems that have existed for decades. And these systems were created specifically to ensure that that basically persons couldn't come from other countries so that they could keep it as so-called white as possible for as long as possible. And they work with them, right? Now somebody might say, well, they're working with them, but they got to work with them because we got to get rid of all these other persons. Can you see how now your division amongst each other and your hate for each other causes you to work with and allow certain things for the ones that you say you hate? Well, see, I've heard more Democrats than I've heard, and I'm not a Republican or Democrat. Once again, I'm just keeping it a buck. I've heard more Democrats recently speaking on scripture to be able to disprove the Republican Party, but they themselves have said that the Bible is trash for a long time. Well, is the Bible trash, or is the Bible something you use as morality? For the longest time, you see, we have to be careful where persons are getting this to come outside of the word, outside of the truth. For the longest time, yo, the Bible is trash. Yo, man, the Bible is what the oppressor uses. If the Bible didn't exist before then, as if persons didn't change it for their own devices, as if there's not something called a slave Bible, there's not something called the Jefferson Bible, right? All right, as if we cannot see that it's even been changed literally just from the 1611 version or the 1590 version or the 1560 version. But you know, everybody, the Bible is trash. Everything in it is wrong. You don't know, blah blah. And then all of a sudden, now that it's time to use it against your oppressor and against each other, you find Bible verses now you can use this piece and this piece and this piece. This is not correct. This is fallacy. It's ultimately lunacy. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. We have this weird place that we're coming from. We have this weird thought process that we're coming from. Right? How you doing, Fanny? All right, Fanny Love. Or not sure it's Fanny, however you pronounce it. Right. So it's important. How you doing, brother Yechasab? So it's important that we recognize that we're going through this weird thing where we're more in tune with fighting each other. And now even the word, even the sword is being used to slice down one another, right? We don't use the sword to lift each other up, right? We don't lose it was interesting. I told you got the guy, and there's other persons making videos about me all the time. But I told the guy recently who was coming in here and the live sessions and being rude and all this stuff and dared to say, I was trying to take people out, just like even some persons listening to me now, said stuff like, I'm trying to sell you guys out and I'm making money off you and blah, blah, and I'm going to die because of my stance and yada, yada, yada. But there was this one guy in particular who was making it a point to be like, oh, well, you are you're gonna have them. I gotta be careful. Y'all gotta be careful. I'm checking on him, and even though he's this and that or whatever, he's gonna have y'all drink the Kool-Aid, right? Trying to compare me to Jim Jones, who was a whole guy who used his position to be to actually trick so-called black persons into be doing something that he wanted to do, which was actually take the lives of black persons. That's what he believed in. That's what his belief was. That's what he did, right? And so, all these things that are going on, you have to recognize and realize, that a lot of persons are still using this, right? You still have to recognize and realize, like you have to realize that we will attack each other, right? It's interesting though that the same person, that this is the person I'm talking about specifically. You go on his page and it's America First stuff and all those things, right? So we know what time he's on. That being said, while saying all those things, he never once brought up the fact that he's okay, right? With, he never brought up to you guys or put in the comment section or whatever. He never brought up the fact, oh, I'm all right with going ahead and, saying that anything that's considered to be black culture is horrible and horrendous. Black culture is nothing more than those who are thieves and thugs, and all they do is kill each other, right? And if they kill each other, he's put this in videos. He even talked trash about one of the guys. I forget what his name is. He used to be in Congress for a really long time. Represented. Did he represent Georgia? I can't recall, but anyways, one of his claims to fame is walking across the bridge at Selma and all that stuff, and he was making fun of him, making fun of Malcolm X after his death, making fun of Martin Luther King Jr.'s death, right? But he won't say any of those things because those things don't matter, right? But what he's ultimately trying to do, and why I ultimately had to block the guy, was like, at the end of the day, your whole thing is to think that we even think we're going to make money or get views or things like that, basically fighting each other. And I'm just gonna keep it a buck with anybody. I'll cut off anybody before I fight with you to a point to where I'm gonna be part of why our diaspora continues to be a part. How you doing, Sister Toya? Right, shalom to you. I'll cut off anybody. If you think that my arguing with you and tearing us apart further, whether you're talking about the Israelite diaspora, whether you're talking about the so-called black diaspora, whether you're talking about the Kemetic diaspora, we're talking about the Afrocentric diaspora, etc. If you're with me trying to argue back and forth and you think that's what's going to go ahead and get it, then you might as well realize like you're going to get the scissors. Because I'm not here to further the stuff. I stay in where I am. I stay in my lane. And if that lane pulls me further away from the mainstream, so be it. That's what I'm supposed to be anyways, because my goal is not to try and make sure that I become popular. My goal is to make sure that we as a people have a safe place to come together and be a nation. Right? And persons miss that. The goal is not to try and make sure that we save the world. So if you're trying to tell everybody we're going to save the world and we're going to separate from everybody else because we're going to save the world, well then don't worry about me. I'm not your enemy. How you doing, Sister Michelle? Right? Don't worry about me. I'm not your enemy. Right? My long-term thought process is one that we're talking about as far as for generations to come. The short term, as far as trying to make sure who's in charge or who wins an argument, I don't care. That's not my care. When I say I don't want to be right, I want to be righteous. And you're like, well, I'm going to argue about you with your righteousness. Okay, and arguing all those things, question, how many persons have you made sure are eating? You know, when persons really go there, so we have to make sure we as a people, see, we got to focus on what is his nationality, right? You didn't do all the things that I want you to do in the way that I want you to do it. Okay, cool. In all the ways, the blah blah, this and that or whatever, have we not made sure that persons have this, that or whatever, and the best that we have? You know, because I was saying this to somebody the other day. I was talking to him, and I was trying to tell him like, hey, you know, because I have friends with even within SOC, have inner circle and stuff too, in different circles that you have and stuff. And I was telling somebody, man, some persons don't really like if it's this thing where persons really think it is. We could easily have just said, instead of trying to do the stuff we're doing, buying the stuff we've been buying, growing the stuff we're growing, looking even into what persons told us we should have bought, and blah blah, and then still, going with what was safe and what actually was there, and come to find out, that it wasn't necessarily the right way to go and stuff. When persons, I try to tell persons this stuff all the time, like, yo, if you really understood what it is, like, it would have been less of a headache for me to just come out and say, hey, thank you guys who give. And we didn't have to worry about meeting up for holy days or having persons connect in their areas or trying to make sure that we finally, the last couple of years have been having persons meeting up even without having to come wherever I am and stuff like that. We wouldn't worry about other ministers. It could easily just be, I come on here, I preach, and I leave. But we've been taught to fight each other so much that we don't even care about building these things up unless it builds up us up the way we feel like being built. How you doing, Sister Shirley? Right, and that's something that we still suffer from. We suffer. We as a people, we do. We're fighting to fight, and really the interesting thing is we're fighting for crumbs under the master's table. And the reality is the true master. We don't care about the manna or the crumbs that rain down from him. So we're fighting over the crumbs. We're fighting over persons that don't even believe what we believe, but we don't make sure that we get the one. No, no, no. Like, fight for those who fight, who walk this walk with you. Even if we have a disagreement, right? Let us agree quickly. Because if not, at some point, somebody gonna have to pay for the dispute. Matthew chapter 5, verses 21 through 26. But the enemy, in Revelation chapter 6, verse 3 and 4, who has put conquerors in place, Revelation chapter 6, verse 1 and 2, has us in Revelation 6, 3 and 4, more ready to fight and off each other, or fight for those who are the 1%, the 1%, the 1%, of the 1%, or want to be recognized like the 1%, the 1%, the 1%. Might I tell you something? You might only get 5,000 persons to ever like what it is that your gift or your business gives. You might only like 5,000 persons, right? 5,000 persons ever who will like your music. But what if all 5,000 of them are faithful and continue to follow and stuff? Why not make sure you focus on them rather than being like, hey, you know what, the system, by the way, if you're a freedom fighter, right? If you call yourself a freedom fighter, if you say you're fighting for your people, if you say you're fighting for truth, I'm here to tell you, a lot of you don't even know who the father of Afrobeats is. What you call Afrobeats today is not Afrobeats. In the jazz African fusion that was Afrobeats, right? If you actually go and look into it, the person who started it, he died with nothing. But those who he influenced, his legacy lives on. Right? But we fought over what little he had left over so much that a lot of persons now in music don't even bring up his name. There's a homework assignment for you. Look up his name. We talked about him the other day. I think we talked about him yesterday. Maybe in one of the Q&A days. We don't even care because we fought so much. Right? What about Sister Annie? Because we fought so much. Who's the one that we always talk about? Madam C.J. Walker. Madam C.J. Walker, powerful story and everything, except they left out Sister Annie that came before her. Look up Sister Annie, who for 10 years was the highest in her state, paid the highest amount of taxes as a sister, black woman in the same times, right, who preceded Madam C.J. Walker. And see how Madam C.J. Walker actually took a lot of her stuff, fighting, to the point to where you don't even know who I'm talking about when I'm talking about Sister Annie. Right. Sister Annie was so popular, by the way, that as long as you made an order by a certain time, she had so much business that no matter where you were in a certain radius, you would be able to get products delivered to your home by 7 p.m. that day. That's better than Amazon, right? on Amazon, you order something, you hope that you get it the next day, right? 24-hour delivery. That's better than FedEx. Hopefully you get it in 24 hours or pretty close too. No, Sister Annie's product, if you got her stuff, you were going to be able to go ahead and get your stuff literally the same day. As long as you made the order by like maybe noon, something like that, during the same day, you would be able to get your product by 7 p.m., no matter where you were within a certain radius. But the infighting and trying to see who was going to be number one was so crazy that we don't even know who she is. You see what I'm saying? This is what happens where we have been taught to fight each other so much that we don't even know how to fight for each other. How you doing, Brother Jacob? How you doing, Avis? Right? We've been taught to fight each other so much that we don't even know how to fight for each other. And we'll only fight, once again, see, it's constituent energy. Remember those 3 C's? If you never heard of 3 C's, the 3 C's, you have confidants, they are for you. You have constituents, they are for what you are for. And then you have comrades, they are against what you were against. Many persons will join up with you as comrades. They are against what you were against. Like a lot of persons going to come together. This is the second time now in a row. Right? Not second time in a row, but I guess, second time dealing with Trump. Right? Because then he 45 and 47, something like that. So you second time where all these persons gonna come together now. We're anti this and anti that, and we hate Republicans, blah blah. And I made the wrong vote, and yada yada yada. Okay. And when he got out the last time, y'all started attacking each other because now your enemy, your common enemy, is gone. See, we don't need just persons who are common enemies, comrades. We need persons who actually live on righteousness together. Then you have constituents. Constituents are not for you or are not against what you were against. They are for what you are for. Constituents so they're not for you, they are for what you are for. If you're not careful, a constituent can look like a confidant. A constituent will roll with you as long as they're getting what they think, or they think they're going to get what they think out of it. But in the second, right, like Paul said in Galatians 3, I can give you the truth, I can help you, I can do this, but the second that something I'm saying addresses you, or something that I'm saying shows the fallacy in what you're doing, instead of being with me, you will find somewhere else to go real quick. All of a sudden you will become my enemy or act like we're at enmity with each other. I thought we were walking this walk together. Right? Somebody, how could, you say this all the time, I rode with somebody, I knew them from when they were a child. How could somebody do such and such to me? They were a constituent. You took them for a confidant. You gave them that confidant space in your life, and they proved to you that they are far from. Right? That's why let yea be yea and nay be nay. Live how you're supposed to live and let others show you who they are. And when somebody shows you who they are, believe them the first time. How you doing, MFY? Shabbat shalom. Shalom to everybody. So let them show you out. And when they tell you who they are the first time, I believe you. Right? And they might get upset with us because you believe them. That's okay. I hear you. I believe you. That old saying about the snake, right, is really an African, story, but nevertheless, something that's become something different. But that old story about the snake, there was a poisonous snake, a cobra. He walks next to, or he's hurt by the side of the road. There's a man that sees him. The cobra says, "Can you help me?" The man, thinks about it, but then goes, "Okay." He goes and helps. He nurses the cobra back to health. He makes sure the cobra eats. Him and the cobra are friends for a long time. Him and the cobra take many walks. Everything's been fine. And all of a sudden, one day, as they always do, they take another walk and they're walking down. And all of a sudden, the cobra bites him. The man in pain, starting to die, looks at the cobra and says, "How could you do that? Why would you bite me? I thought we were friends." The cobra says, "We are friends, but I'm still a cobra." Right? You can be friends with me, but my natural inclination, my nature is my nature. My character is my character. Right? Even when you see those videos of persons who have venomous snakes and things like that, right, who are with them. I said poison earlier, venomous. Venomous snakes and stuff that are with them. Like, even when you see those persons who have these venomous tendencies and things of that nature, and they're around persons, that person has to have been with that snake so much for so long, like basically almost never taking breaks from being around that animal, that they get to that position. And still, they still get bit from time to time, right? Because it's the nature. You're doing everything you can to make that snake feel like it's okay, knowing that there's still the possibility you can get bit. And that's ultimately what a lot of persons do. How you doing, Sister Joy? And how you doing, Anat? Right? A lot of us are trying to stay around a system that's venomous in nature, and stay around teachings that are venomous in nature, and stay around persons who are venomous in nature. And no matter how much we know deep down inside, they're part of a system, they're part of a thought process, they're thought of a belief system, they're thought of something to where it's twisting. But we say, well, we'll give you one more time. We'll give you no. If I know that you were a snake, I must pay attention to your nature. Another thing about snakes, right? About constituents, where it gets difficult and persons don't like it. We don't just try to see, go through the whole long process of trying to see everything. Muhammad Ali said it like this in the interview that he gave. He said this actually twice. I've heard him say this. I think both times in interviews in Ireland, where he was asked, they said, the guy interviewing him goes, well, when it comes to snakes, and when it comes to this and when it comes to that, you have to be careful with those snakes now. Because, or I'm sorry, or you have to be careful because why is it that you just automatically say all white persons this, all white persons that? And he said, I don't think that all white persons are bad. He said, but it's like this: if there's 100 snakes and they're coming down an aisle, or he said, I can't remember the name he gave. I'm gonna say 100, or the number he gave. I'm gonna say 100. He said, let's say there's 100 snakes coming down the aisle, and 10 of those snakes want to fight for me. And 10 of those snakes, when they get close to me, they begin to fight out the other snakes, and they try to make a wall of protection for me, right? But I don't know who's who, and they're all coming at me. He says, well, why would it be wrong for me to say I need to protect myself against snakes? And in essence, it's true. Now, I'm not trying to sit here and do all white persons of this, all black persons of this, or anything in between. What I'm trying to say is that if there's a group that's coming against us, or a system coming against us, and you're rolling with the same system, if I can take it a little further than our ancestor, Brother Ali, did, right? If I can take it just a little further, if there's a bunch of persons coming and you're coming together as a group, if you're part of the group, I have to assume that you mean me harm. See, and the constituents sometimes play both sides of the aisle. And they're like, well, you can further me in this way, but you can further me in this way. So they'll come and they'll bring persons who are trying to assassinate character. They'll come and bring persons who are trying to stop us from bringing the word. They'll come and they'll make sure that they are anti-marriage. They'll come and they make their red pill. But they say, we have certain values and stuff, and we'll just roll with you. But if you roll with me, but you're still bringing that, and you get upset when I say, hey, that's not holy. When you get upset and I say, hey, look, I understand spirituality, but I also understand spirituality enough to know that is not the same as this. And I call that out at Sham Yechashvai, right? I call it out because Levach HaKodash has shown me about that. I call that out because I know that goes against Abba Father. If they get upset about that, then we have to recognize who they truly are and believe them the first time, right? And until they have a change in heart, we can't pretend that that's okay. You said your own biological family can be venomous in nature? Yeah, for sure. Right? So we have to recognize, right, that a constituent will be with you until, right, they're not for you, they're for what you are for. Right? But a confidant is for you. And a confidant might say some stuff you don't want to hear. Right? Now, a confidant in our culture still needs to come correct with the word. And a confidant, if they're for you, they will look at trying to help you. And if they're for you, they will not say, hey, everything that you're doing, I'm going to dismantle it and you better be for me. That's not even a constituent, nor is a comrade. That's an enemy. That's a wolf in sheep's clothing, right? But if they're for you, right, they might be the person that you can. I've talked about this before with confidant energy in times past. Somebody who I swore hated me, but ultimately was always telling me the truth. But I swore they hated me until I realized it's 3 a.m. I got a flat tire. I don't have a spare, and I don't want my car to get towed. And nobody who says that they love me, even if they're right down the street, can help. But the person who I swear hates me, I can call, and they come and they help me. Right? And at some point, I got to realize, well, who's the true confidant? The person that was willing to tell me all the stuff that was nice to hear, and then all of a sudden this. But also too, the confidant should be for you. I've talked about this before: confidant versus constituent, right? Where constituents will say stuff, but you got to listen carefully. They'll be like, "Man, you make me feel so great to be around." Sounds great, right? Oh man, you make me feel safe. Every time I come over your house, I have a great time. Every time this and that. I've seen you do so many great things. Da, da, da. They pumping your head up, but they haven't once said, "Here's something that I want to do for you." If you notice, it's just you're doing this, and you make me feel, and you're blah blah, and you're this and that, and you got to realize that's basically what yes men are. Yes men are not confidants, but they get treated like confidants. Yes men are not going to help you to where you're supposed to go, but they get treated like that. But yes men but the confidants actually care about you and will tell you the truth, even if you don't like it, and watch this, can receive the same thing back. Because if they can only tell you where you're wrong, but can't receive anything wrong back, they're still not a confidant, right? Right? We have to be aware of what a lot of these persons are and what they become, and what they believe and what they say. But we've been taught to fight each other so much. Back to Revelation chapter 6, verse 3 and 4. We've been in it the whole time. But we've been taught to fight each other. That Willie Lynch syndrome, right? We've been taught to fight against each other because of age. And we're starting at the letter A because of what Willie Lynch said, because he said that he just started at A because he's going in alphabetical order. Right? He said this isn't necessarily the order, but it's one of the things that he used. Age. If you're older, we shouldn't listen to you. Man, that's just whatever. Right? Man, auntie, she just be whatever. She just be saying stuff. Mom, what do you know? You're not in my generation. Grandma just trying to be nice, but she don't know nothing. Man, if you would hold on to the wisdom of the elders. But once again, this second horseman is using the same tactics that have always been used to get us to be anti each other. By the way, to be anti each other, is Christ pro us coming together, or is he against it? And if he's pro us coming together, but we keep trying to find ways of being against each other, then we would call it antichrist. Mm. Sorry to hear that, right? If we be honest, right? Christ would be about us coming together. Paul would be about us coming together. Persons don't like Paul because Paul never said that you should be against the law. Paul said that you should allow persons to have a chance to be able to be grafted in, which is a process. And persons today can't stand Paul because Paul said allow persons to come together. He said hold them accountable, but first let them come in. Let them at least know who Christ is. Let them at least have access to the Holy Spirit. Let's stop pretending that these persons have had this their whole life, or even their their ancestry has had the same advantage that we've had in persons that know the law. These are things that Paul said, and Paul is hated by us because of the same thing that we use against each other. Right? I'm sorry, the same thing that was used against us, we now use against each other. Anybody trying to become us, because the little bit of power that we have. This is something my wife and I talk about quite a bit. When we'll see persons, statistics show, for example, if you're trying to pull into a parking space and somebody knows you want that parking space, you ever experienced that? You're trying to pull into a parking space, somebody's very aware that you want that parking space, they will stay there longer just because you want it. Right, you desire it. If you did not desire the parking space, they wouldn't care. They would just leave. But because they know somebody's waiting, something happens, right? To where they go, we're going to make this person wait. You know why that is? That's because they feel like they have very little control, and they need to have more control. And so anything that they can do to get control, they'll use it against you. Same reason why if you ride it down the interstate and you're trying to get over, and somebody who's been going way slower than you, and you even passed them a little while ago, and so they weren't even trying to go fast. You put on that blinker, they speed up all of a sudden. Matter of fact, if you let them go past you and you get behind them, then they'll slow down again. Why would they do that? Why would somebody speed past you to get to that red light? I say that all the time. Somebody be going fast, or somebody's mad, and the light is red. I'm slowing down because the light is red. Person tried to go in front of you real quick. Okay, you beat me to the red light. But for what? And then you get slow when we start going. You're not even going the speed limit. I was at least going, a mile under the speed limit, a mile per hour into the speed limit. Here you are, you won't even go under the speed limit. Or you won't even get up close to it. You 5 miles, 10 miles underneath the speed limit. Then why did you need to do all that? Because they have very little control. You see that you do that sometimes, right? But it's a thing, right? Like that happens. There's studies and statistics, and persons have been asked questions and stuff, and come to find out, a lot of persons, when they lack control, they do certain things. And so we as a people who have not even known who we are, who have not been able to have our own businesses successfully, who have not had a mindset of nationality, who have not had language and stuff like that, we're using this new knowledge, so to speak. We're using this knowledge that is new to us to try and use it to control others. We cannot wait to be able to tell everybody else why they are wrong and why you better be under me and blah blah. Right? That's why I don't mind having Q&A sessions. Because I don't have to be right about everything, nor do I have to be in control, nor do I have to be a person where you can never ask me a question. Now, I'm going to be honest back and forth with you. But we should, you know what I'm saying? I'm going to be honest with you back and forth, but we should comprehend what's going on. But a lot of us, we need control. Now, the Most High should be in control. Here's why you got to come out from under that horseman who's been given the sword. Yehoshua has the sword from his mouth. He has the sword. Forgive my sword. I got to get a new version. I done torn this one up. Still am using it. But the sword we've been given, right, is what we should go by. But this other person has a sword, and we've allowed their sword, at least in our mind, because it's not. We think that their sword is put together better. We believe that the blacksmith makes a better sword for the enemy than the blacksmith of the Most High. We believe that the iron and clay can defeat the clay, when we know in Revelation chapter 12, the clay has already defeated the devil and the devil's people. And that's why he made the governance that you're under. According to Revelation 12 and 13, he made the first beast, the beast that looks like the serpent. He made the first beast, the governance, because he knew that he could not defeat you if you use the word. Come on, somebody. Right? Come on, somebody. Hallelujah. Right? Come on, somebody. You've seen it on the road for sure. Yeah, you just dealt with it recently, right? Where somebody messed you up. Praise Yah that you were protected, right? But you got to recognize, persons are trying their best to get you and I to come out of position and to come out of pocket and to not believe and to not be righteous and to have all these weird things that are fallacy and lunacy. And the reality is that you and I need to go to a place where we recognize that no devil in hell can separate us. Only we can allow the separation. Because if we come together, it's already guaranteed that we have won. See, when you already know you have won, then why would you split up with winners? Why would you split from winning? Why would you make it more difficult to win when what you have is guaranteed? As Charles Barkley would say, guaranteed, right? It's guaranteed. Why are we going to something else when it's not guaranteed? It's guaranteed that what we have is righteous and it's automatically going to get us what we're supposed to have. We've already won. That's how you're more than an overcomer. You're more than an overcomer because you're connected to the one who has already crossed the finish line and says that as long as you endure and cross the line, that you shall inherit what he inherits. You shall sit on thrones next to his. Matter of fact, it says you will sit in his throne with him the same way he sits in the throne with the Father. That's Revelation chapter 4 and Revelation chapter 5. We have been taught to split away from guaranteed winning. How are we splitting from guaranteed winning? You see what I'm saying? You have been taught to split. You think you're splitting from one another, not realizing that you're splitting away from winning. Come on, somebody. I know. What they used to say is out your amen, right? Come on, somebody. Come on, let's tell the truth. What they say, tell the truth, shame the devil. You've been taught that you're supposed to split, but you've never been taught what you're supposed to split from or what you're supposed to remain connected to. You just are taught over and over again to split up. Salah. So here you are, splitting and splitting and splitting. This is why a lot of persons, right? And there's no shade to anybody. I'm not trying to come against anybody. I'm just telling the fundamental truth, right? We're telling the truth. This is why many persons, when they come to SOC, and I'm not mad at any of you, I'm not trying to speak ill, let your yay be yay and your nay be nay. What you do is what you do. But there'll be persons that come in and say, yeah, you know, Pastor Kofi, I've been with such and such, and I've been a whole bunch of places, and you know, this is the place, this is the spot, and I'm not going anywhere. I'm gonna be faithful. And I'm like, okay. I don't not believe you, but we're gonna see. Because many of us, including at one point myself, I'm probably a little more faithful than most. But I'll be honest, that whole church hopping thing, a lot of us do that. Even if you say you're not in the church, a lot of persons can't wait to hop from this one to this one to this one to this one to this one. And all we're doing is splitting and splitting and splitting and splitting and splitting. All right. And if you keep splitting and splitting and splitting and splitting and splitting the pie, and then you start putting these little microscopic slivers all over the place, how are we going to be able to tell where the pie even is if your sliver is microscopic at this point? We can't even tell what your piece is, what it looks like, what it used to look like. Now dirt done got in it. Nobody's ate it for 5 years. It's all ugly and nasty looking. Nobody would eat it anyways except the bugs. We fighting bugs off of it because it's not even worthy of going in your stomach. But somehow we're trying to hold on to the stuff. There's so much splitting over and over and over again. Like, how does a kingdom divided against itself cannot? Come on, you like what Abraham Lincoln said it, but Christ said that. He said it to these religious leaders that said that he's not who he says he is. He said, if I come and I'm healing in the name of Yahweh, if I'm praying in the name of Yahweh, if I'm teaching in the name of Yahweh, if crowds are coming, if we are growing into a nation in the name of Yahweh, then how is it that I heal in the devil's name? You see what I'm saying, right? It can't be in his authority. It can't be in his name. Not only am I not saying his name, because we don't say his name, so that's even the bigger part when they were coming at him, but also too, hey, I stand on this, and what I stand on, it's growing in righteousness. Matter of fact, you're using, now look, I don't know, if the shoe fits where it doesn't take it off. I'm not talking about any particular person on here. I really mean that, right? I'm just telling you what happened with Christ and how we have to know how this happens today. Because Revelation is supposed to help us in things that are happening today, right? We're looking at microcosms of things to help us in what's happening today. We're supposed to preach this to the 7 assemblies that are represented by the 7 spiritual influences that are going on, the 7 spirits that must come from the throne to bring us back into becoming a nation today, right? We're in Revelation chapter 6. Soon we're going to be in Revelation chapter 7. Revelation chapter 7, we're going to see who the nation is today. Okay, and we must recognize, and how you doing, is it Alex Hayes, thanks for being part of the community. So if we're going to do these things, I need you to recognize, beloved. I need you to see this. I need you to comprehend. I need you to understand. Be under the standard. You ready? If we are to do what Yahweh has called us to do, you must recognize that, guess what? If we are doing what's righteous, I'm going to show you something where you can see who some of the false teachers and preachers are. You ready? The religious leaders, the Pharisees, Sadducees of their day, right? Because there are some still today. These Pharisees, Sadducees, and even scribes that work for them. Sadducees, basically a higher level of Pharisee. These Pharisees and scribes that you need to know the law greater than, they came out to argue with Christ only because Christ was more popular and more persons were listening to them. Now, once again, if a great video for us is hitting 2,000 persons. So I'm not sitting up here acting like it's about numbers like that. But hear what I'm saying. The persons who were hearing the truth. For example, when the Sermon on the Mount is finished in Matthew chapter 7, at the end of Matthew chapter 7, after he says all these things that I said, I will liken it to, I will liken those who listen to the wise man who built his house upon the rock and was able to make it through the storms. But for those who do not have an ear to hear or go against this, I will liken him to the fool that built his house upon the sand. And when the storms came and when the tide came in, his house could not stand. All right? So after he finishes that with the Sermon on the Mount, where he literally starts off in Matthew 5:3 by saying, Barak, right? Are those who are poor in spirit. for the kingdom of heaven, right? It belongs to them. This was so mind-blowing to them because the persons of their day were saying, if you are not as religious, if you will, as I, then you're not even worthy of the kingdom. If you don't make as much money as I, if you don't have as many followers as I, if you don't do this and blah, blah, they were astounded to hear Christ say, no, no, no. Even if you don't comprehend the word yet, or as much as you should, the kingdom is still yours. We just need to work on some things. It flipped the paradigm. It shifted the paradigm. It flipped the pancake. Right? It changed things. It really did. How you doing, Sister Snap? How you doing, Nick? Right? It changed the way that everybody looked at this. Wait a minute. So these persons have been telling me that the kingdom is not for me because I'm not as great as they are, and I need to bow down to them, and by bowing down to them, somehow that'll make me closer to the Most High. But you're saying I have access to the kingdom without them? And you're the Messiah. But these persons who are not the Messiah are saying, I have no access. Now, I get chain of command. Chain of command important. But they were saying, wait a minute, hold up, time out. You mean I have access to the kingdom? That statement blew their mind. But guess what? It still blows persons' minds today. Wait a minute, I can pray for myself. I don't have to go to the priest. Wait a minute, I can ask a question and not be told that it's wrong for me to ask a question. Oh, that still goes on today. You would think that that'd be a simple thing, a simple fix, something we got rid of a long time ago. Persons are still doing that stuff today. That's right. The time and the season is at hand for a change, right? Wait a minute. You mean that that it's possible for me to learn who I am, and I'm not just only somebody who goes back to their grandmama, maybe their great grandmama and great granddaddy, and I don't even really know them like that. I'm bigger than a mistake. I'm bigger than just somebody that like, hey, you were just here randomly, and maybe you can roll into some Jesus or something like that, and all things be well. Yeah. You have a whole culture and community that Christ was preaching against those things that are being conformed to, and he said, if you can't get with that, you are a fool. And right after that, it was the people, it was the persons who sat there at the Mount of Olives during the Sermon on the Mount, who said, matter of fact, let's go there, Matthew chapter 7. Because sometimes persons be thinking we be making stuff up. Let's look at this. Matthew chapter 7. Okay, you ready? Matthew chapter 7. Verse 26. Oh, hold on. Let's go back. Sorry. Matthew chapter 7, verse 24. It says, therefore, whosoever heareth these sayings of mine. This is the same person. This is whose revelation we're in? Revelation 6? Yechashphaz. Same Yechashphaz speaking here. Revelation chapter 7, verse 24. Therefore, whosoever heareth these sayings of mine and doeth them, all right, and does them, I will liken him unto a wise man, which built his house upon a rock. And the rain descended. How you doing, Brother Alton? And the floods came, thank you, Elder Tamara, and winds blew and beat upon that house. And it fell not, for it was founded upon a rock. The word is the rock. Heat, right? The word is the rock. All right? And every one that heareth these sayings of mine, that doeth them not. Oh, Brother Alton should be fine. Khalil, Brother Alton should be fine. I'm sorry, did he say something wrong? He should be fine. Right? Shall be likened, unless it's another Khalil. No, that's Khalil, SOC, Brother Alton. He's okay, I think. And everyone that heareth these sayings of mine and doeth them not shall be likened unto a foolish man, which built his house upon the sand. And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew, and beat upon that house, and it fell, and great was the fall of it. Now, this is what the people said after they heard the Sermon on the Mount, and after Christ ends with that. Watch this, verse 28. And it came to pass, when Yechashphaz had ended these sayings, the people were astonished at his doctrine. For he taught them as one having authority, and not as the scribes. Wait a minute, hold on. He just said you got to know the law greater than the scribes and the Pharisees, and then the people heard him preaching, and they said, wait a minute, he taught as one having authority, and not as the scribes, not as the one who are writing these books, not as the one who's writing even the versions of the Bible you read, not as the ones who are up here preaching and teaching, not as the ones who are in line with the Pharisees, not the ones who are willing to say this and that. He said, oh, okay. Pocket butt. Okay. All right. Okay. So it was a okay. Well, hopefully we'll be able to get it back. I don't know how to do that on YouTube. I'm gonna have to figure that out on another thing. So hopefully it's just a mute, right? Yeah, it's just message deleted. So hopefully it's probably just a mute. It'll be for a few minutes or something. Probably. All praises to the Most High. All righty. So so but yeah. So we have to recognize that a lot of persons, and this is where persons don't like what I'm talking about, but where is your authority? Right? Where is your authority at? Yeah, no problem. Yeah, be safe out there. You got to go out here in this. If it's worse than ours, it's probably worse for y'all up there. Be careful out here in this weather. I was out there earlier, and I made a mistake not thinking. Had the wrong shoes on, trying to run out to put my windshield wipers up. Oof. I couldn't even make it over there. I forgot I had the wrong shoes on. I had to turn back after like 15 steps. I had to come right back. Be careful out there. This weather ain't nothing to play with today. All right. But yeah, so we have to recognize and realize. And how you doing, Bull Eye? We have to recognize and realize very quickly that we have been taught some things that we don't even care about who teaches it. We don't care about who's giving the report. Who shall believe our report? Who shall believe our report? Now we should stand on business here. Stand on business here, right? Who shall believe our report? Who is our? Who is it that we have the right to every tongue that rises against us shall be condemned? It's our inheritance. No weapon shall be formed against us. Is that for everybody or is that for us? Who is us? Who is our? Paul preached this, by the way, too. So it's confirmed by Paul. But he's not the first one to say it. Who was the first one to say it? Law of first mention. That's Isaiah, right? Isaiah chapter 53 and Isaiah 54. Who shall believe our report? We got to take time out to recognize that there's a lot of wickedness and a lot of craziness, a lot of foolishness is going on. And persons want us to go ahead and go for whatever. Where is your authority? Who put the mantle on you? It's always interesting. Persons will ask me that question. I'm like, okay, if you need my bona fides, if you need that, I'm sure. But then here it is. You guys are like saying all this. Okay, who put your mantle on? The Most High put my mantle on. Okay, well then that's not. Look, I'm not saying the Most High can't come to somebody, but he still uses people. He still uses chain of command. So we have to be careful in this, right? See, the scribes had position, but their positions didn't even come from Christ. Here's Christ on earth who speaks with authority, and the scribes get upset at him because he speaks as he's authorized as the Messiah, as king. The king can be speaking. This is why Paul has to tell us. See, we hate Paul when he brings out sometimes the obvious. This is why at the end, before he says in Romans 10:1, this is my prayer that Israel might be saved. 2 verses before that, he starts to say that we could not see the Messiah when he showed up. He was a stumbling stone of offense to us. The Messiah himself was offensive. His word, the word wrapped in flesh, was offensive to us because he dared say and speak what he was authorized, and his authority means ultimately he's authorized over us. And the religious leaders could not see that the one who was Christ, who is authorized over them, they could not get with the laws of the prophets. See, it was not the law of the Spirit, it was the law of the sin. They had twisted the laws of the prophets, and they were preaching and teaching to Christ and trying to catch him on traditions of their fathers that were not traditions based on the Father's word. And here's the Father's word wrapped in flesh, and they can't hear it because it's about what they want. See, the conqueror, when he shows up, he puts persons in positions on this second horse to come through and make sure that you and I fight each other over a bastardized, a fatherless, a sourceless version of the word of Yah. You said you never asked any church pastor who is their authority? Come on, right? We'll question each other, though, for sure. For sure. We'll question each other, though. Oh, yeah, what's your authority? Who blah, blah. Okay, fine. Who chose you? I'm not trying to speak like I'm all that, but there's times when persons who don't even know me and never heard of me will come back and they start using teachings, and I know the teachings are teachings the Holy Spirit has given me because I know who started the teaching. I know where they got it from. I know the tenor of the person. You know what I'm saying? So the person starts attacking me, and I'm like, hey, before you do all that, I don't always come out and say it, but if I'm at mine, I'm like, oh, this person doesn't even know that they're like they don't recognize where that teaching came from. Right? So they start coming to me, sex is marriage, marriage is sex, in the little TikTok community, and they're trying to come against me. I'm like, yeah, I know. I'm aware. Not because that's my word, it's because it's something the Holy Spirit gave to me, and it's something that within a small group of believers in a certain space, I know where you came from. Now, I'm not saying nobody else has ever said that, but I'm saying this particular instances, I had some person, sex is marriage, marriage is sex, and so and so said, and so and so said, and I'm like, yeah, I know so and so. I taught them that, right? But we'll fight each other rather than actually hear each other out. How many times somebody come on, oh, why are you wearing this? Why are you doing it? Why you speak like this? Why is it that, oh, well, Christ really isn't Christ, and da-da, and this and that, okay. Why is it that you only would tell me that Christ doesn't matter when I'm saying protect women? Because before that, you were calling the Messiah. Then you heard me say protect women. Now all of a sudden you said, well, maybe Christ is not even the Messiah. Something's wrong in your heart. You were trying to win an argument so bad that you don't give a F about your mama now? Sorry to say it like that, but I'm just being real. Like, you don't care about your wife now? You don't care about your baby girl? You don't care about your auntie? You don't care about grandma, man? Now? Because I told you that Christ is this, you were with me up until this. And because you hate women or don't want to protect women, now he can't be your Messiah? Now you got to change what the word says? It was you were the one telling me, bro. You were the one telling me, sis, it was in red. Now all of a sudden, all you do is see red. All you are is passionate about the wrong thing. You're angry. Right? You're angry, you're frustrated. I'm not saying I'm the end all be all of anything. I'm giving particular things about myself, about my journey, right? But I'm just saying, persons who are angry, persons, oh yeah, we walk with, oh yeah, it's cool, oh it's all right, yeah. When you're giving me da da, when you're blah blah, when you're making sure that you tell everybody that I'm without sin, but then all of a sudden when I say, well, you were without sin and a lot of stuff, but all of us fall short. No, not me. Right? And have the audacity to say though that you represent the Most High. This is a lot of our representation, unfortunately. There's a lot of our preachers nowadays, not just in the church either. Not just in the church either. This is a lot of our representation. A lot of our representation is about getting what they want so much that somebody can literally just say, okay, the word says this, and it's like, oh no, I don't accept that because now look, I get it. Look, all of us fall short, including myself, and I have blind spots, and I am not aware of everything, right? And I cannot always tell you the genealogy and the genesis and the DNA and the this and that or whatever of everything. I might not be able to recognize every scripture as you say it. I might not recognize that there's something you might know some things that were changed in scripture that I don't know. I'm not saying I have to know everything. What I'm here to say though is ultimately that a lot of persons are more concerned about arguing to make sure that they number one, I don't care, right? We have to stop fighting each other. If your goal is to fight, one of the persons I look up to a lot, even though we don't have the same belief system, but I look up to him in many ways, KRS-One. KRS-One will hear somebody say something and will know the person is completely wrong, and still will listen to them, hear them out, and then will begin to explain things and then tell them where they are right, even if he knows ultimately they need to learn some more things. Right? We are invested in things that are totally. I don't know why we know why. There's many different reasons, but we fight each other. The goal of the second horseman is to take away peace from the earth. Right? How do you take peace away from Vietnam? You get the Vietnamese to fight against Eurocentric value versus Vietnamese value. You get them to say Vietnamese versus French, Christian versus Buddhist, right? You do, right? The persons who make the most money because of capitalism, the persons who make the most money because of communism. How do you get persons to fight in Venezuela? You have persons who work for the CIA and persons who don't. Persons who make money off of oil and persons who do not. Persons who are lighter skinned, persons who are darker skinned. How do you get persons to fight in Cuba? Right? You say that you support the regime that's prior to Castro, even though the regime that's prior to Castro is American, is fighting for what? For those who are considered in their value system to be white. You tear down Che Guevara, even though Che Guevara is not any of the things except for maybe one or two exceptions in a book where he wrote some bad things about so-called black persons. Then he said he got older and realized how crazy he was and basically fought not only there but fought in Africa. And then the only thing close to him saying something about black persons that was bad again was him basically saying, hey, they wouldn't listen to us when we were trying to train them. And somehow, some way that meant he hated us. Look, if I'm trying to train somebody, especially for war, and they not listening to me, I'm a little upset too. Right? But we have been taught to hate each other, so we have to tear apart Che. And even though Fidel was not the greatest, let's not pretend that Fidel didn't send persons over to Africa and over to the Caribbean and over to South America to be able to fight and became communist, not because he hated his people, or he became communist and ended up separating and therefore being, we don't like to talk about this with Fidel, but the reason why Cuba still has issues with getting gasoline and things of that nature is not because of just Fidel, it's because of America, who has made sure that there's blockades around to ensure that Cuba can't get certain things, right? But we're taught to hate each other so much that we can't even see who our enemy is. Remember, your enemy really is the devil, and the devil has the people, his children, and his children have built a government. The government works for the Satan. Now, a person say, see, this is when I got to check out because, no, the government is satanic. Look, I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat. If you out here, okay, look, we're going to keep it all the way 100, right? I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat. If you mess with little children, you're evil. We don't need to try and act like one person did or didn't do it. Hillary, if you're part of an organization as a lawyer, and Coretta Scott King tells us anybody part of the organization is somebody that we shouldn't make sure that we listen to because they hate us, I'm going to trust Coretta before I trust you. Right? Let's stop doing this weird stuff. Like, hey, Clinton, if we got pictures of you in Epstein's house in a dress and got stuff on paper saying it's a possibility that you and Trump was engaged in some activities, you weird, you sick. Clinton Foundation, if you tried to erase habeas corpus and called us super predators and did 3 strikes and you're out, and this person's still dying in prison because they were under your regime, we're not just going to be like, oh, you know what, we thought we were doing what was right, but we were wrong. No, what you going to do? Faith without works. Okay, you have faith, so you say that what you did was wrong. What you going to do to change it? Because you're still messing up stuff in Haiti to where you made it to where persons in Haiti cannot even grow their own crop because it was illegal to get their crop before the bad version of rice that was offering them, not just because they couldn't now grow their own crop in their own country, but because you made it to where they had to eat yours and the rice was terrible that it tore them apart. It's not even real rice. But they had to eat the ones from your boys that you propped up in Arkansas. You know, the place that you were governor. And then afterwards, we're still taking care of them same boys, you know, and they came from their boys, you know, and the men that were before them, right? Like, we're caping up for these persons, but we will try to support the Hillary Clinton. I didn't even know about the one. I knew about how in front of Charlemagne and them, she made a point to say, Hillary Clinton, when she was running for president, made a point to say how she had hot sauce in her purse. I didn't know that she said it to, my wife brought up, who was it, babe, you brought up? He told me, was it Meg Thee Stallion or somebody? She did that too as well, right? But we're voting for these persons and we're giving them passes and we're acting like these persons don't have a history. We're acting like Trump, the Trumps and the Trump family, the Clinton family, you know, have not been seen in many pictures together. Oh, it's Beyonce. Okay, thank you. Sorry, it wasn't Meg Thee Stallion. I don't know where I got Meg Thee Stallion from. Forgive me, Meg Thee Stallion, if you ever see this, right? But the Beyonce, oh yeah, I keep hot sauce in my purse. Like, what are we doing? We're doing our best to erase. You want to say Republican bad, Democrat great, when they both keep doing the same thing. They both keep doing the same thing. They both keep playing the same game. At what point do we call out the game that's being played? At what point do we say, hey, enough is enough? At what point do we say, yo, we gotta get this stuff, you know, in order? At what point do we stop fighting? Like, you see what I'm saying? That's your enemy. Why are we fighting each other? At what point do we say, hey, Joel Osteen is out there and he's making movies that are not even truth based on the word, using things that we know are forgeries of the word and things that are not true and they don't match the Bible? When do we say something about him rather than fighting each other? Right? We have misplaced anger, misplaced mistrust. Once again, nostalgic trauma. We've gone through trauma, but we keep thinking that we keep acting like each other was us. Oh yeah, Meg Thee Stallion was dancing for Kamala. Yeah, so maybe that's where I put the two together. But we're fighting each other. Oh, it's dangerous about this one, and I don't like this word, or I don't think they're going as deep as what I would go. You know, that's what. Can I tell you something too? I've been around a long time. Just because I'm not popular, or just because you know, I just popped up on social media recently in life. I've been in the game for a long time. I know what it is to be around a bunch of preachers. And I've been around a bunch of preachers of many different religions. Okay, right. I'm calling them preachers. If you want them to be called whatever you need them to be called in your belief system, right? Priests of any kind, imams, this, that, right? Priests, bishops, etc. Right? Versions of Shakyamuni Buddha, Dalai Lamas, whatever. Right? I've been in the game a long time, and I've sat down in front of some so-called great persons just because of how much influence or whatever they have. Right? I'm here to tell you that all the preachers do this. I'm here to tell you, right? When you go in that back room with them, whether it's before while the praise and worship music is playing and they come out during it or whatever, when you go in that back room with these cats, I'm telling you right now, this is what you're gonna get. You're gonna have all these persons talking about bona fides. Hey doc, how you doing? Hey sir, how you doing? Oh, it is great to see you. Right? Namaste, whatever it is. And then they start to say, how many persons are with you? You know, we just had a service and we had this many persons. Well, doc, you know, we had 1,500 show up to this. All praises all praises, glory to Jesus. That's what they say. Glory to Jesus. Glory to God. We had this. How many persons showed up? Well, you know what? We're thankful. You know what? We're glad you got here. You know, we got you something. Don't worry about it. We got an offer. We got you covered, Doc. Before they preach anything, don't worry about it. The money's right. This is the conversation that goes. But, you know, after the sermons and during the sermons, with the preachers are very interesting as well, whether we be in the pews or whether we be in front of everybody or whether it be in an auditorium. Because you know what they start to say? I'm taking you behind the curtain a little bit. Some preachers might not like this. Preachers of any kind, right? I don't care if you're preaching politics. This is what they say. They'll say stuff like, you know, that was all right, but you know, if I had been preaching it, I would have said it like this. Oh, it's great. I love the fact you're talking about Mark chapter 12, verse 28 to 34. But you know, if I was preaching, I'd make sure that they know about Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4. Oh, you know, you got the fourth word. Well, if I was preaching the fourth word, I'd make sure I bring out Psalm 22. Because if you don't bring out Psalm 22, then nobody gonna get it. I know they only had 5 minutes to preach, but I'm just saying it's not gonna be an in-depth word, you know. And you sit around it long enough, and you start to go, man, y'all got a complex. Y'all got short man syndrome in the spirit. It's a competition. That's right. You battling each other. You can't wait for an opportunity. You're literally telling on yourself out loud, man, you know what? When it's my opportunity to, I'm a really preacher. I'm better than that person. That's what it is. For real, that's what it is. You can't wait for the opportunity to be able to say, oh man, when it's my opportunity, I'm gonna tell. They don't never do it, right? There's a lot of persons who can't just say. A lot of preachers, especially, if you say, "How do I do?" Now, look, this should be criticism and constructive criticism at times. There's a lot of preachers that just can't say, "Man, that word balak, it blessed me. It's balak." We always have to go to a place of saying, "I would have said it better." We can't even tell you the notes that we took from your sermon because we weren't listening, we weren't hearing the word. We were listening to say what we would have done better. So that's why you see what I'm saying? This is something that still is an issue in the intellect of of these persons who are there. Stiff necked. Come on, hard hearts. I'm telling you how a lot of preachers work. I promise you, if you talk, I done gave you the game. So watch this. When you send, I don't know if you have persons, and you know, probably a lot of us who are listening to me, whether live or later on, you would probably be able to say that you have a friend or two that are of the cloth. They preach, right? or at least they used to, or there's, they talk a lot on social media, whatever. Go to that person, go to that preacher, and just send them a little video. It doesn't have to be my video. It can be any video, right? Send them a video where somebody's preaching and it's something that got a lot out of, whatever. Send it to them. 1 59-second video, a short, TikTok, whatever, right? And see what they say. More than likely, they're going to start to tell you what they would have said, right? Because that's the environment. To fight against each other, it's not just for the non-believer. We have been taught that it's more important to fight against each other, and we have this weird belief that if we fight against each other well enough, it means that we're holy. The greater the fight against each other, the holier we are. That's the mindset, right? You got to recognize, if you're talking about conquering, if you're talking about conquistadors, if you're talking about those who came and are the ones who colonized. They colonized, right, taking the Bible and changing it into what makes them best, and told you as slaves to preach them and to go against each other. So guess what? Every Sunday, as much as we want to act like when they had church service, and still today, by the way, it hasn't changed, but every Sunday when they had service, right, as slaves, they had an overseer in there to make sure that they preached the truth, and the overseer was the end all be all, even if that overseer had no knowledge of the word. They were supposed to come in there and say why it was better to be like the oppressor than it was to recognize themselves. And that meant they were supposed to be in competition, because the oppressor said the house Negro versus the field Negro. Right? It was the oppressor that said, well, how old are they? It was the oppressor that said, what plantation are they from? This is stuff that still happens. Well, our churches in New York are better than those churches. No, dude, that's plantation. It was the oppressor who said, hey, what color are you? White church, dark-skinned church, light-skinned church, black church. It was the oppressor that said women versus men. Some churches, men are everything. Some churches, women are everything. Right? These are things that were put in our society, put in our communities, specifically to ensure that we were against one another. They don't have to do it anymore. The bourgeoisie, the celebrities that are there, and I don't care if you're a celebrity preacher, for real, if you're a celebrity preacher, be that. But you should be a celebrity, right, to your people, and you should be willing to be somebody who is actually the antithesis of the world. And so the world looks at you in high standard because they think that you're a celebrity based upon how much they hate you. But why is it that we use the hatred for each other? See, watch this. We shouldn't have celebrity preachers up here who are preaching for offing our children in the womb. I'm going to say that again. I'm going to hurt somebody's feelings. It's okay, though. I mean everything I say on that. We should, right? We must not keep giving persons celebrity and acting like it's okay for these persons to hate us hate us so much that we would allow them to off the children who are in the wombs of our mothers. We should not support. See, all these things that we talk about in the world and hating each other and all these things, they have come into our places of worship. And they've been there for a while. If anybody should protect our children, should it not be us? This is when persons look at us weird, because they're like, wait a minute, you don't protect your children, but you out here trying to tell me and others what we should be doing, but you don't make sure the children are protected. Oh my greatness, if I might just be honest, do you not know? Right? This is one of the things that turned me off as far as Jehovah's Witnesses. They use out of context that scripture that you should have, what is it, two? You must have 2 or 3 witnesses. They try to take that out of context. Right? So, and this is what I mean, right? You may or may not know this, but I'm gonna just tell you the truth. You might not know this, right? If you do some research, by the way, studies show that self-approved. You don't have to believe it just because I said it. Please make sure that you study this stuff for yourself, okay? If you were to do some research about Jehovah's Witnesses and about SA, what you will discover is that You talk bad about the Roman Catholic Church, and they bigger, and there's a lot more of it's been going on longer. But Jehovah's Witnesses have a whole bunch of stuff about little boys and little girls being messed over and saved. And nobody talks about it. Matter of fact, they aren't supposed to talk about it because they would always say, well, this is the witness of 2 or 3. And hey, if somebody's usually doing something to children, how many witnesses are there going to be, right? But that's the way that they got around it. And anytime, especially if it was done by elders or somebody like that of the congregations, they would make, or even the governing body, they would just make it a point to say, hey, we don't have enough witnesses. And they would actively make sure that nobody would say anything about the child or to the police, or else they'd be excommunicated. So the child would have to sit in services with the person who was SAing them, and they would allow it to keep going like nothing happened. So why is it that we should be surprised when persons point a finger at them? And why would we say, oh, well, all Jehovah's, no. If the governing body is actively, matter of fact, this was brought up to them because somebody brought up a great scripture. I forget the verse off the top of my head, but they brought up a scripture that talks about a specific incident to where there was a young wife who was forcibly, was essayed in the field somewhere. I can't recall exactly where, essayed in the field. And they made the point to say that even though there was not another witness, they still needed to take the life of that man for doing that to that woman. The person brought this up to the council, to the council of Jehovah's Witnesses recently. And they still were like, well, because they're trying to protect it. Now watch this. If you don't think that they're trying to protect it, by the way, here's some more research you can do. You can literally look up in Australia alone. Notice I didn't say in the United States. Also, I didn't say in the world. I said in Australia alone. Jehovah's Witnesses have something crazy like 1,200 at least reports and cases. And they have much more that hasn't even been brought out. And they're trying their best to go to the Australian government and see if they can get all those wiped away. Just in Australia alone. I think I'm too low, but I don't want to go to where I'm wrong. So I'm going to just keep it on the low end, right? Just in Australia alone. So when persons tell us, see, I used to be somebody, I can't fight this anymore. I used to try, even though I'm not even in the church, when I hear persons say, well, all these churches and all the blah, blah. And even though I would admit, yeah, there's some of it for sure. We got to keep an eye on it. But then when there's this many numbers coming out, this many people saying that they're Christians and different types of Christians, et cetera, et cetera. If there's this many numbers coming out, we got to have an honest conversation. Like, this is disgusting. I forget what the statistics are. If somebody wants to look it up or whatever. But I don't know how many out of how many children are essayed, but it's too much. I mean, one is too much, but you get what I'm saying. At this point, this is becoming a normalcy for babies. This is becoming a normalcy for babies. And babies that get touched, they end up growing up to be adults that touch others. They actually grow up as babies to touch others. Like, at some point, we got to, for healing's sake, for righteousness' sake, we got to have a conversation. We got to stop not believing these children too. They be telling us all the time. They be telling us, so and so did this, so and so hit me like this, so and so essayed me, so and so, and we're more concerned about what happens in this house, stays in this house, and stuff like that. No. If somebody doing that to my baby, if somebody doing that to SOC babies, we gonna deal with you, and you better hope that, because we gonna be righteous at first. We gonna call the popo, but you better hope that on our way on our way over there, because we still coming. You better hope they beat us to you. I'm not saying we might take your life, but I'm saying we gonna make sure that right, and that child knows, because that's the one thing that happens is the child is not supported. So the child never gets the help. The child doesn't really know, hey, these persons have my back. My people got my back. They grow up, and now they grow up where they really messed up. Right? Now, if we find out later that the baby's whatever, but I'm going to tell you right now, first things first, if the baby's saying it, hey, we might not put hands on you until it's proven. But you better hope that if we come over there, we got evidence. I'm just being honest with you. And you can quote me on that one. Right? You can say, Pastor Kofi said that. Right? I'm not saying just go over there and start beating the brakes off everybody, but if I come over and I see some evidence, I'm gonna call the popo while I'm on my way over. But if I get over and I see some evidence, mess around with these babies if you want. I don't care if you was giving the SOC $5 million a year. Mess with these babies if you want. You're gonna get $5 million a year worth of hands. You should. Quote me. Right? Quote me on that. Put it out there. What you said, Jehovah's Witnesses is a church. Yeah, they protect. Yeah, I can't say that word, but I see you, Bridget. Yeah. And by the way, they're not the only ones. Like we said, Roman Catholicism. By the way, we look the other way a lot in the so-called black church. Oh yeah. And you know what? And see, I have to be careful, right? Because I'm not bashing those who deal with homosexuality. I'm not. But let's be honest. How many persons who are homosexual, who are in churches, who we use to make sure whether they're preaching or whether they're playing music, whether they're singing or whatever, we use them to build up the churches, right? And don't talk about that many of them were messed with when they were little children in those same churches. And by the way, that's one of the reasons why you don't kick out so-and-so who is homosexual, because it's your fault that he got like that in the first place. Why don't we talk about that? See, we so busy fighting each other and fighting each other over this stuff, but we don't fight for righteousness. Let's fight for that. Let's deal with that. See, this red horse is something else, ain't it? When we won't stand up for the word, but we'll use all these weird versions of word and word, river, and sword. Why don't we talk about the fact that little baby boy got messed with, and so now he's big baby boy, he's pastor now, or he's minister of music, or he's whatever, and we don't want to talk about the fact that he was dealt with like that. Like, look, Donnie McClurkin, I don't know if what happened to him is true or not, or what they say about it, excuse me, is true or not. He talked about the fact that he was messed with as a little child, and when I hear that, guess what? The first thing I think of is first thing I think of is, man, that hurts to know that that was done to you. Somebody took away chastity from you, male or female, is wrong. But then the second thing that comes to my mind is he must be protected from himself as much as protecting him from, or protecting others from him too. Because when somebody, especially when somebody does that to you over and over again, what does that do to a person? Right? What does that do to a person? What does that do to a person? And we don't want to have these discussions. We act like this is a terrible discussion, a terrible thing to talk about. We shouldn't talk about this. No. Like, what does that do to a person? And we keep having them, and how you doing, D? We keep having them in the assemblies. And we don't want to talk about the fact, like, we keep giving them positions of power and this and that, and nobody has ever said, let's heal you. Let's work on your healing. And I'm sorry, I probably should have said trigger warning. However, to my brother and my sister, and maybe you need somebody to listen to this part too. I don't know where are we at in the recording. We're at 1:27. So what's that? At 2 hours and 7 minute mark, right? Trigger warning. But also, if you have somebody that listens to this, or if you are somebody that listens to this, or if you need somebody to hear it, I need you to hear. Like, seriously, we don't talk about, hey, it's not your fault. We have fought each other so much that we'll fight for pastors that allow this stuff or do this stuff, but we won't talk about fighting for you who had to go through it. We'll fight to make sure that what happens in this house stays in this house. See, we got persons talking about we ask for forgiveness from those who we gave out for who they were homosexual. But let's not talk about the fact that, hey, we ask for forgiveness for turning our backs on you all. And when I say we, I'm not saying I did it. But once again, see, this is when you talk about accountability. Just because I did not do it personally doesn't mean that there are not persons who Bible thump who didn't do the same thing, who didn't do what I'm talking about, the same thing I'm talking about, which is to come and let this stuff go. And so there are persons who are literally losing their mind because they're trying to make it in a society where everybody says we care about you, but we don't really want to hear about you. It's kind of the same mindset. It's not obviously the same level. But you know, when you're on the train or you're on the bus or you're walking or you're at your job or just you're at a school and somebody says, hey, 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 what's up? How you doing? Now, we don't really want you to tell us how you're doing, right? It's just like what we're supposed to say. we want to look like we're nice. But don't really tell me how you're doing. If somebody comes to me and says, how you doing? And I pause and I start tearing up and you start trembling. person starts going, oh, I didn't come here for all that, right? You don't really care about the person, but you're supposed to care about the person. And so you walk this really weird tightrope where you really could care less, but you have to pretend that you care more. And then when somebody or life shows that it's time for you to actually be about what you say, all of a sudden you don't care. Oh, I know somebody don't want to hear that. We just tell them the truth today. We just having a conversation. If I'm lying, I'm flying. If I'm lying, you don't have to listen to me. You shouldn't be listening to a liar anyways. I'm just telling you the truth. We have persons that are going through and we don't really care enough to make sure that they are developed and that they get to come out of these things. How you doing, Vanai? How you doing, Vanny? Right? How you doing, Majid? Right? We have a lot of persons. How you doing, K-Money? We don't care. We don't care about the innocent. We don't care about the innocent when it comes to the word of how many persons were taught a perverted word. We don't care how many persons were taught perversion in marriage. We don't care how many persons grew up in broken marriages, grew up in divorce households, grew up in households where they didn't even know either parent. They didn't know one of their parents. We don't care about the healing process. We don't care about, hey, somebody when they're born again. When you're born again, we got it. You're talking about as a whole. As holy. See, we fighting around the wrong thing. You said people ask you that question, and when you tell them they get offended, most not all. Yeah, we got to recognize. We got to recognize. Glad to see you're doing okay, D. We got to recognize. We got an honest dialogue, honest conversation. I know you don't want to. I know you don't like what I'm saying, but let's be honest, my brother. Let's be honest, my sister. We are missing the mark. We're so busy fighting that we can't heal. What is morality? What is the prism that you look at for your morals? And if somebody has given you a weird, I'm just, can I fight for the person who's been messed over in that regard as far as essay and stuff? If the preacher is looked at like he's the Lord God himself or herself, and they keep getting to mess with the child and we look the other way, and even when something in us rises up, Holy Spirit is trying to have conversation and say, hey man, your child is messed up. Your child is having issues. Protect the child. But we keep trying to protect pastor before we protect the child. We can't talk about morality. You'll fight all these other battles and stuff, but you ain't making sure, look, basic things. You'll fight all these other battles, but your people ain't eating. You hear what I'm saying? How you doing, Brother Thomas? You hear what I'm saying? You're fighting for all this stuff, but your babies don't eat. You fighting all this stuff, right? But you don't communicate with others and make sure that we communicate on a regular basis, unless it's the way you feel, when you feel, how you feel, whatever. You say that you see the wrongness of what's going on in our society and in our culture and in our community, but you don't do anything about it. You talk bad about it. You're just as bad as somebody out there who says all this stuff about Trump, but they ain't gonna help nobody. Who says, I'm on social media to call out all of the persons who are doing our people wrong and then sell you shirts. I'm here to make sure that I fight against poverty. Hey, buy this shirt for $45. And look, if you're doing so be it. But don't do this weird thing where you come in now and be like, anybody that asks for any money is crazy. You're the same capitalist, if not worse. Person's coming over from Europe now to make sure that they cover the third world stuff that's going on in the United States of America. But they're not going to help anybody in America, just like persons who go over to Africa and tell you feed the children, and they going to feed the child with that fly right on their eye, with their belly swole out and everything. Because they could care less. They're not going to build a hospital and let those people be trained on how to run their own hospital on their own land. You think when they build a hospital somewhere, they're building a hospital to make sure that your people is healed? Or you think they're building a hospital because hospitals make money? You ever studied Oprah Winfrey's school? You think she built the school because it was something that the people needed, and she was going to make sure she paid attention to the needs of the people? Or she built it because it makes money and it makes her look a certain way? You think Oprah Winfrey was fighting for Hawaiian lands because she's a nice person, or she was fighting for Hawaiian lands because she owns so much land over there and people already can't come over there? And she said she wanted to make sure that she came over there to buy it so that the bad white conquerors wouldn't take the land from the Hawaiians. Meanwhile, she got so much land over there that Hawaiians can't even afford to live. There's a reason why. But we've been taught to fight each other so much that we don't look for the actual enemy. Oh yeah, money's gonna come up next. Money and violence and pestilence is coming up. We still got 2 more horsemen to go. Right? Tomorrow we're gonna get into that money and how much bread costs and how much food costs and how much your eggs cost and all that. This is all in Revelation. But right now we must recognize that it's the conqueror, Revelation 6:1 and 2. It is the conqueror, the 1% of the 1% of the 1% of the 1% of the 1% who does this for conquering sake. Is who she is, it's who he is, it's who their society is, it's who they are. Come on now. Right? It's who they are. And they put this thing in place to have you and I at war with each other. Yes, you are at war in Venezuela. Yes, you are at war on the streets of America. Right? They tried to put the army on put boots to ground in Chicago. They found a way to try and extend boots to ground in Washington D.C. They tried to put boots to ground over there in California, whatever. Even though the Supreme Court has basically said, no, you can't do that. They're gonna keep on going and going and going and going, right? You still at war, but I'm here to tell you the biggest war is that you're at war with yourselves. You're at war with yourselves, beloved. You're at war with yourselves. We're ready to fight each other more than to fight for each other, and really fight for the Most High. Fight for yourselves. Fight for your family member. Fight for your community. When you work hard. There's a couple of y'all about to get your degrees and stuff. Work hard, complete the task, get the degree. But when you get the degree of knowledge that you get, when you use it to make sure that you have more degrees of knowledge in your community, or will you just use it to go ahead and go right back into the same system? Once again, we have been taught to fight each other more than to fight for each other. So we're not worried about actually fighting for each other. Once again, we have been taught to fight for each other, right? Or fight against each other rather than fight for each other. So watch this. When this happens, why would you care what the next man is going through if you've been taught to fight against him? Okay, all these brothers out here espousing all this stuff about masculinity and things, right? You think that you're in a competition to see who's the greatest alpha male. So why would you treat the man next to you with respect if you think he's your competition? Come on, somebody. Why would you treat the man next to you with any kind of compassion if you think every man around you is your competition? Sisters, you go ahead and so sister says, girl, I like that dress. Where you get it from? Oh, this whole thing, I don't know. Why? Because competition. I can't tell them where I got that dress from. I can't have nobody rocking what I'm wearing. You see what I'm saying? And that's low level stuff. Now women have become in competition with men in the eyes of men, so much so that men can't go ahead and respect women. Because to respect women, you're taking opportunities out of my mouth as if we're not all working together. And women are now in competition with men. Men out here acting feminine too. And I didn't say so-called gay or homosexual. I said effeminate. To where you don't know what actual masculinity is. And women think that any masculinity is toxic, even though we got this term from somebody who actually is not one of us and actually 2 persons, both of them who are not of our hue, and also are persons who don't believe in sexuality the way that we do. So therefore, they said anything that looks like a so-called straight black male or cis black man, if you will, right, has all of a sudden become something that is what? Toxic. It is toxic because it is toxic against a system that goes against the Negro or those who have Negroid features. Which is why now we as a people are having a lot of so-called black persons coming out and saying, oh, well, if you don't fight for homosexuality, you must recognize that it wasn't that long ago that being black was a bad thing too. Okay, being black because of the color, or being bad because of something you're born with, like the color of your skin, is not on the same level as being labeled bad because of something that either that, you know, more than likely you chose or was put upon you by somebody else. Because there is, as much as person keep trying to talk about this, there is no such thing as a gay gene, right? There is stuff that comes in you though that's going to cause you to have more melanin or less. And either way, we shouldn't just automatically lump you in a group. But persons will. Salah. So we got to have honest dialogue. We got to have honest dialogue. Persons are not protected. We're not protecting culture. We're not protecting each other. We're not protecting the word. We're not standing up for righteousness. If you're not going to do those things, then you got to be ready for what happens. And what's happened with us as a people is that we've dealt with all this foolishness that comes with the lack of protection, even keeping the word. Remember, Revelation, it says, who is this revelation for? First of all, it's Christ's revelation, and it's given to those who readeth it, heareth it, and keepeth it. Will you guard this word? Yeah, children stuff is the way that it is. Children's games are the way that it is. They try to get our children on Discord and these things they're getting caught up on, and these groups and stuff, like the thing with Mr. Beast, you know, boy who's a girl now or whatever, like he still capes up for him and stuff like that. How you doing, Big Roy? Like, and all these different things. We don't want to talk about this stuff. It's real. It is real. And this is why a lot of persons don't even want to listen to us, because we don't deal with that. First things first. Like, yo, even in some of these camps, like, we're going to talk about what they do to women and what they do to children. This is why when persons do have a right to question some of this stuff, because they hear us talking about being on land. They know about that stuff. What about Dr. York and Bombada? Same tree, by the way. What's his face? Brother Polite. You know about Brother Polite? Polite. Dr. York, Bombada, Brother Polite. Now, Brother Bombada never technically went to jail or court. But that being said, they're the same tree. And Bombada is hip hop royalty. Some would say that you got to put him on Mount Rushmore. They say he's that important. And he still has persons who kind of follow him, like Polite and York did. And he caped up for York. If you're not aware of what I'm talking about, this is even stuff to where, see, we fighting each other and not fighting the real enemy, is my point. Dr. York is somebody who did. Now, he didn't have our belief system, but they actually went out somewhere. They actually built pyramids, believe it or not. Like, there are persons still to this day, by the way, that build pyramids in places in the United States of America. But they went out to themselves. They built pyramids. They had land. They had homes. It was very clean. It was pristine. It was secure. But allegedly, and he was found guilty of this, by the way, but I'll say allegedly because there are persons that lose their mind when we bring up this stuff and talk about how we need to protect our children and stuff. But we're in Revelation chapter 6, verses 3 and 4. That's the focal verse for today. Hashtag we be the nation. Revelation, the second horseman, right? And us fighting each other, and where we get this stuff from, and being passionate about fighting each other rather than being passionate about fighting our enemy, right? But that being said, and Dr. York basically was messing with the little babies. Was getting, I believe, some of the teenage girls pregnant, but he focused way on the younger side and messing with them. And finally, somebody had to come and snatch him up. And you had persons who fought for him, including Bombada, hip hop cat, who is one of the founders of hip hop, at least considered to be. But many stories of many men who have come out. Now, who knows? Because, you know, a lot of persons jump on trains and and he's never went to court. So we got to say that this is all alleged, excuse me, right? Allegedly alleged. But there's grown men who've been coming out for years, decades, and been saying, yeah, you know, when we were little, he was having us come in and he was, you know, having us have a do a word that rhymes with, well, I'll say the word. Was having them. He would pull out his phallus and he would masturbate. He would have the little boys pull out their stuff and tell them. Some of them not even little boys. So this is when it gets questionable because some persons are like, "How old would you be?" or blah blah. Maybe you wanted to be around and stuff. Whatever. Either way, if you're doing stuff like this, and you're even if you're grooming somebody, right, which is more seems to be his thing. Either way, though, right? We don't know about how much. Some of them say how much SA was actually going on. Some of them say, well, he just was introducing us to stuff as little boys, whatever. They would watch, a thing that a whole bunch of these persons did, and persons made excuses for it. Persons in the porn, made excuses for it, where you would have these boys come around, usually with an older man there, and allowing you to watch porn and see this stuff. And sometimes, they would be like, it's okay if you do this word in front of each other. Crazy, I was never one of those groups, but I did. If I be honest, when I got in the military, and in my room, there was a guy across the way from me, and he just played video games all day and stuff, and he was into whatever, but we never saw each other, and he had his own side of the room, and we put up a thing, and if he did whatever he did over there, hey, I guess, right? It is what it is. In the military, it is what it is. But there was a guy who was a friend of both of us. All of a sudden comes over, finds out that the guy has that, and it's like, hey, we should watch this together. It's really weird, Why would I watch something like that? Even if I'm not going to do anything to it, why would I watch something like that with you? But I'm like, we should just watch it together. And I guess there used to be, there were obviously movie theaters and stuff where persons did this, so it is what it is. Um, but yeah, they would do that stuff, and so it's really odd. But that being said, Bombada was doing stuff like that. It's a typical thing that persons do to try and get the child or the underage person used to, or even somebody who's not into what they're into, but try to make them feel more comfortable to try and get them to do whatever. It's part of a kink, if you will. I guess maybe you call it that, a kink or something, whatever. So, but Bombada, that's hip hop royalty. And by the way, there's a lot of hip hop cats that allegedly do that all the time. Now we have to stop saying allegedly so much because, you have persons like Tyler the Creator. Tyler the Creator is supposed not just an edge lord, but he's supposed to be queer, and that's him allows him to get away with not only a bunch of stuff that he says and does that's really out of pocket, but also a lot of stuff that he's done behind the scenes. Now it doesn't seem that weird for not Willow. What's Will Smith's son's name? I see his face and everything. I forget his name. But Will Smith's son, that's when he cries out one day and says, while he's, I don't know if he's underage at the time. He's still really young. Maybe he's like 19-ish or 18-ish. Maybe he's not underage. But that allows him to cry out and say, Jaden Smith, for him to say, oh yeah, Tyler, that's my boyfriend. But we don't say nothing. or when we hear these stories about, now this is alleged, but we hear all these stories about Busta Rhymes. Right? Or we hear, or we hear, all the stuff and about Puffy. Everybody knew, but nobody would say nothing. Now he's there. Or what about all the stuff we knew about R. Kelly? Age ain't nothing but a number. For Aaliyah, has R. Kelly blurred out in the background, standing against a fence, which is crazy. Where if you from the Chi, or have anybody that you know from the Chi around a certain time, it was known that R. Kelly showed up to high schools and all the time, right? And would be outside the high schools and would take girls from the high school and would go talk to their parents about taking them and being able to make them stars and stuff like that. And everybody would let it go because he was supposed to be able to give them a career. So we're so busy fighting, against persons who actually have at least a similar belief to us that we wouldn't even stand up and call that out. Why? Because he black. How you doing, Sister Monica? Why? Because he black. Was that best? Was it great that we made sure that we protected? Still, some of us trying to protect R. Kelly, the aura, right? But he was busy doing his thing with your babies, and we ain't saying nothing, right? We'll fight for gang members. There was just a shooting not that long ago where there's a birthday party. They're having a birthday party event. Birthday party event happens to have some of it that's outside. There were 2 gang members that showed up to the event. Who knows if they were invited by the person who started the event or by somebody else? Persons come looking for the 2 gang members. They were rappers. They shoot them, but they're in okay condition. Meanwhile, 3 babies died and one, young adult dies. One person, 21, dies. One teenager and two. I think it was or it might have been like ages 8, 10, and 12 or something crazy like that. But we'll fight for the right to have that stuff in our neighborhood, or we won't make sure that we fight for each other. You see what I'm saying? Like they have us at war, and we have to recognize that, hey, if you're going to you can't, and I'm not just talking about race, or what we perceive as race. I'm not talking about so-called white persons or the 1%, the 1%, the 1% of whomever, right? I know I mentioned Oprah too earlier, so I'm not being, there's even, I forget the name of that guy who comes on, and a black person comes on, and he talks about, so-called black person comes on, he also talks about money and basically says that, you can make this much money, blah, blah, and they don't really have anything but a pyramid scheme, right? I forget his name. He's got a girl who's young who has followed his teachings, and now basically she does the same thing to persons as well, right? So I'm not even talking about that, but watch this. What I mean by this is you can't deal with the minority. The persons who are conquering you are the 1% of the 1% of the 1% of the 1%, and we don't have the mindset to say, wait a minute, we outnumber them millions to one. You see what I'm saying? We outnumber them millions to one. Just as human beings. I'm not even talking about within our faith. As human beings, we outnumber the persons who make your life miserable millions to one. That's right. We're fighting for the wrong thing, right? But we don't fight against them. We don't cut them off, right? I'm here to tell you, I know that you think that the police would round everybody up, but if everybody in the United States of America alone just said, we're done listening to the police would have no power. Now, am I saying that we need no policing and policing, if you will? No, we need it, but I'm just trying to tell you the power that you actually have that's already within you is greater than what you walk around with. Seriously. We forgot how quickly, right? We're so powerless now. Did you not forget that when everything happened with George Floyd, you immediately said enough is enough? And when you said enough was enough, what happened? Even Nickelodeon was putting out stuff. Talk about Black Lives Matter. Right? Before they said they were taking breaks from their programming and putting up scrolls to let you read how much they had to agree. The NFL said they would never take a knee. And even though they didn't do it for Black Lives Matter, they did it for themselves to go against Trump. That being said, even they took a knee and used it. You guys are having problems with Walmart and with Target again. Walmart and Target had to bow a knee. You forgot? You remember that? They had to bow a knee. Right? They had to bring them, coolest monkey in the jungle stuff and all that stuff out of there. That's how much power you possess. But because we don't really live in that power, think about that power, operate in that power. Right? Because we don't really live in that power, operate in that power, we got an issue. We got a problem. This is how powerful you are, right? It took 12. The Bible says 12, talking about the apostles. 12 men turned the whole world upside down. 12. Imagine 1,200 dedicated to the word and saying, we shall not be moved. Imagine 12,000 to say we'll use our own currency. Imagine 1,000 or 120,000 who say that we don't operate in anything outside of businesses that are within us. Imagine 12 million. See, now we get into a place where it's undeniable. Imagine 12 million persons are together in Feast of Tabernacles. Sounds like it's crazy numbers, but at one point there was a whole nation that did that. It's called the Nation of Israel. In Israel, it's time for us to stop fighting each other. The time is up, right? Time is up. For many, you won't adhere to that, and that's okay, because even a lot of our Israelite sites, TikTok channels, YouTube channels, Facebook channels, social media platforms, IG, etc. A lot of these sites, a lot of our websites are based off of saying why we're better than everybody else. Ultimately, we're on the street corners ready to fight everybody else, even each other. They call each other the N-word and call our women B's and say horrible things about our children. Anybody that's even trying to battle for the truth to not allow them to be able to be grafted in, right? And I get it. We've had to fight to exist. See, I'm not totally oblivious. We had to fight to exist. So if you had to fight to exist for many, many a year, of course, it's going to be difficult, right, to come out of that. But I'm here to tell you, watch this. You are truly free. Now, somebody says, no, we're not free yet, blah, blah. No, no, hear what I'm saying. Even in being in the land of your captivity, the truth has made you free. Oh, no, here you go. You're trying to erase. No, no. I know red line is there. I know this. That what I'm saying is you are free. Now, at this point, we can start. When you become free, you're free to make choices. See, if you're still bound, then you got to realize your choices are gone. I'm going to sound, I hope I don't sound, prayerfully you get what I'm saying, because I can see how what I'm saying could be misconstrued. What we're about to go into now could be misconstrued and be like, oh, he's keeping up for, for racist white supremacists. But I want you to recognize something. The reason why you want to become sovereign or private, right? Because even if you don't like the term sovereign, fine, private. You do things in your privacy. The reason why you want to become private is because what you really want to do is you want to be separate from the system. Until you're separate from the system, right? Whether you get your paperwork all together right away or not, until you start living separately from the system, you will never, right? The more separate from the system you are, the more free you can become. There's free will regardless, but hear what I'm saying, right? If you are, okay, watch this. If you're a preacher that's ordained by the state, some of you already know the answer to this, so if you want to answer, feel free, right, in the chat. If you are ordained by the state, let's say you're ordained by the state, you're ordained to be a reverend, to be an elder. You're ordained by the state, you're ordained prophet, evangelist, whatever. You're ordained by the state. When you're ordained by the state, who do you report to? See, I want to show you the fight and how it's messed up and how some of you are fighting for stuff even without knowing it. If you're ordained by the state, who do you report to? I'm trying to help somebody. If you're ordained by the state, who do you report to? If you're ordained by the state, you report to the state. Come on, right? Come on, somebody. So if you ordained, how you gonna remember me? So if I'm ordained by the state, that means that when I preach, who do I represent? See, and we don't like somebody to say that, but it's the truth. Don't get upset, right? We still talking. If I'm ordained by the state, then who do I report to? Who do I preach representing? I represent the state. If you get married, right, under the state, then you report to the state. If your marriage is there for the state, if your children are ordained, I know you don't like using that term, so let's use it this way. If your children are receive a certificate of birth from the state, then who certified them? I'm just trying to show you. See, we're fighting for things, and we swear up and down we're free. You're not free. You're in the same system. Just because you say Mr. instead of Master doesn't mean that he's not Master. Right? If your child is certified, if the state says we can't even say that your child is certified to be in existence unless we say they're certified to be in existence, then your child still belongs to the state. If you say, right, if the state says we're the ones that see, watch this. What is it in the state of Texas? It might be all over, but I'm just going to be safe. In the state of Texas, this year is expected. One out of every three farmers will go into bankruptcy. Now, one out of three farmers will go into bankruptcy, and yet the state has told you you're going to eat But the farmers can't afford to feed you, and even if they are allowed to keep the cattle that they have through bankruptcy, and they decide to stay farmers, they can't sell the beef. So, question, my guy, question, my boy, what are you eating? See, it sounds weird. Somebody be like, "Oh, see, he's one of these weird person. They just saying stuff." But no, no, no. Question: what are you eating? Come on, somebody. Right? What are we eating? Is it food if farmers can't even provide it? The state says they certify you and they grade your meat. Okay. But the farmers are saying we can't even provide meat and we can't even sell meat. So, and I know they just said, well, we opened this up for Venezuela and stuff. That just recently happened. What you been eating? Have you looked at the fact that they glue different types of meat together in mixed state? Have you studied about the fact that there's actually plastic that's in some of your rice? Have you thought about the fact that some of your crops that you eat, some of the things you buy for the store, persons are having videos where they're trying to burn them and they don't burn? Have you looked into the McDonald's formula over the years that it's changed and it's still a formula? It's not a recipe. You remember, it wasn't that long ago that hey, if you had nuggets and somebody said they were pink slime, you were like, yeah, I know, and you ate it. It sounds once again like something I'm just saying randomly. Look, we're so busy fighting each other that we don't even recognize we should fight against the person giving us fake food, should we not? I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Humorm three not me not sure how to say it. Or humor me not or something. Oh, humor me not. I think that's what it is. Thanks for being part of the community, right? Should we not admit like yo, something wrong with this? Somebody's giving us fake food, and we knew it was pink slime. And we knew that ribs was something that we couldn't tell you what the meat was. It didn't taste like, right, like anything we've ever really ate before. We talk bad about stuff. They tried to tell you the black folk from Haiti were over here feeding you stuff running around just like they did the same playbook with Chinese persons and the same playbook with others before that. Like, when did we stop fighting each other long enough to say something not right? When did we stop fighting each other long enough to say we're fighting the wrong persons? This is a specific thing done. Like I'm telling you, we don't want to admit it. At some point, we're going to have to. We're going to be forced. So prayerfully, you'll get to the place where you're forced. At some point, you're going to have to admit that your fight is not with each other. You wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities. We don't even know the origin of things. We don't know the origin of fruit. You're eating seedless lemons, right? Praise y'all, these lemons have seed in them, right? But you're eating seedless lemons and seedless oranges and seedless grapes and seedless watermelon. That means you're not having fruit. You know, fruit. It has to have seed, right? My son asked this quite a bit. He says, "Hey, Dad, if we're eating seedless watermelon, is it fruit?" We don't, by the way. We try to have everything we can with seeds. Sometimes, unfortunately, especially when you're on trips and stuff, sometimes you got to do what you got to do. But it's like, no, it's not a fruit if it doesn't have seed. Right? Little things that we don't think about. So here we are because, oh yeah, I want to make sure, we want to go as far away from the natural as possible. Can't even taste the difference. I can praise Yah. I've gotten to a place now where I can taste the difference between like apple juice that's drink, even if they dress it up as juice and sell it, and apple juice that's like real. Or I can taste, oh, this apple juice been in plastic, or this apple juice, like even simple stuff. I know. For those of you, when you go to the hotel and they be putting up those little drink things that everybody has, and they want you to press a button, like none of that's juice. None of that's juice. All of it's drink. You know the difference between apple juice and apple drink. Come on, right? Some of y'all are going to go back to juicy juice. Right? And it made it green. It made you think, oh, it's just green apple. No, that's not green apple. Unless you get it outside the United States, Apple Jacks ain't got no apple in it. Talking about this Apple Jack. So they got no apple. That's flavor. And even your food coloring, be careful. You know what that red is? That red is crushed up bug. We wrestle not against each other. We're wrestling against the fact that we don't know origins. The reason why it's easy to get you to fight against each other is because you don't even know where you originate from. How can you say you love somebody and you don't know even the origins of love? The original love is Yah. For God is love. The original love is God. Or Elacham. Right? That's original love. That's why even when somebody speaks something that's powerful and positive that can help us to bring together, your first inclination is ad hominem. Let me make fun of somebody so that I don't have to show them love, or they don't have to, or their love does not have to be accepted. Right? Even when the trolls come on, that's what you're doing, right? Like, so we don't recognize even the origins of love. Do you think that the origins of love has to have to do with, when somebody mistreated you? Because a lot of you go to, once again, nostalgic trauma. Oh man, I was so mistreated. So this one's better for me because they're not treating me like that one did. Or do you know what love is? Love is patient, love is kind. I can speak in all manner of languages. I can play all types of instruments, right? I can make sure that I speak in tongues. I can make sure that I teach all this. I can be the Hebrew of the Hebrews. But if I have not love, well, what's the origin of it? What's the original love? Because when you know original love, you don't fight to keep up hate. I hate with righteous indignation. How you doing, Sister Sherry? ¿Cómo está? Gracias por tu presencia siempre. Right? I fight for the kingdom. And I don't even have to do that much fighting for that. Right? But I don't fight to try and say, how can I make sure I keep separate? How can I separate even further? How can I separate even further? How can I separate? How can I get us to fight even more? If you're living in truth, right? Now look, all of us need to learn some stuff. Ain't nobody 100% accurate about anything. But if I'm 98% on mine and you 98% on yours, right? Then that two or whatever percentage that becomes when you put both of us together, but that 2% ain't really bothersome to me if you can teach me that 2% I'm missing. And vice versa. Right? But if you think that because out of 98%, the 2% means that we should go ahead and tell you that you trash, then I'll be trash over here and you be whatever you need to be. But I'm not dealing with that. That's not how you come together as community. I'll give credit where credit's due. I talk trash about Jehovah's Witnesses. Not really, but I told the truth. But that being said, I said some negative things about Jehovah's Witnesses earlier. But I say this. Charles Taze Russell, when he started Jehovah's Witnesses, there was no such thing as communication and things like that. That came from Rutherford after him. In the beginning, it was Bible study. For example, and if you disagree with what he said, okay, I mean, he was supposed to be the head guy, but at the end of the day, you could have disagreements and still stay in. For example, Charles Taze Russell, as we talked about a couple days ago, Charles Taze Russell, he actually believed that he went to the Pyramid of Giza, and he went there, he looked inside, and he supposedly measured the hallways, or at least got measurements of the passageways. He used that as math to be able to come up, I don't know how exactly, but he supposedly used it as math to be able to come up with what he thought was going to be the last day and the last year. And he kept doing that over and over again. Every time he would be wrong, he would try to use it for something else. That being said, that was his belief system, came off of the pyramids. A lot of you don't even know that, right? So when you think Charles Taze Russell is just straight Bible and blah, blah, that's not where it started. That being said, though, he was like, you're allowed to, you know, have different beliefs and stuff like that. We can have different beliefs. We just have Bible study. Ultimately, we're still trying to be a community, even if we have disagreement, and they grew. When Rutherford comes along, he said, no, I want to make sure that I have complete control. And he starts saying, if you don't do everything exactly the way that I say it, then we can't listen to you. Now, while I'm saying we shouldn't necessarily allow all manner of belief in, we should at least be cordial and respectful enough to hear each other and then have genuine conversation based off of, is it in the word? Is it historical? Is it documented? Is it lawful, et cetera, et cetera? Rather than, oh, I don't like the way you said that, or I don't think you went the way I would have went. Or sometimes, straight up we can be wrong, but we can't ever have anybody tell us we're wrong. We can never be wrong in our own mind. No matter what the results of our life may show. we're never wrong in our own mind. So it has to be a place where I just have gotten to a place where I'm like, yeah, I'm not fighting. If somebody wants to talk about the stuff on the live, I don't mind having a certain amount of debate, giving persons 10 to 15 minutes of fame max, but we're not giving you 2, 3 hours. I'm not doing what I used to do where, okay, I was going in the video against everybody. Anybody said anything, I was just going to say something back and blah, blah. I mean, that's nice and everything, but it's not fixing anything. Now I try to spend my time making sure that those who need help can receive help. Right? I try to spend my time now. Those who would like to love on one another, let's love on one another. I like to spend time with those who repent. Well, I forgive even before repentance, but once you repent, let's restore such a one who has fallen, if they be our brother. How you doing, Sister Judith? Right? Like that's where my focus is. That's what I'm trying to build up. That's who I'm trying to become. Right? I'm trying to be more than a conqueror. I'm not trying to just only focus on where I was. So we have to stop fighting each other. I don't know if I need to go any further than this. We normally go a lot longer. I think I'm done. We got to stop fighting each other. We have to start realizing the persons who've conquered, they conquer and they send persons in to make sure that they take away our peace. And how do they take away your peace? When they do it through the means that we talked about today, but then they make sure we fight each other. And as long as we're fighting each other, they're able to do whatever it is. And watch this. They're doing whatever they want to do, and it's right in front of your face. They're doing whatever they feel like doing, and you don't even think twice to say, what is that? Because you're more worried about fighting your brother or your sister. That's the truth. You're more concerned about fighting your brother or your sister. And since you're worried about fighting your brother or your sister, I'm out, Karen. I'm out, right? Because you're more worried about that, you don't even see what they're playing right in front of your face. They're lying to you right in front of your face. They're abusing those children we were talking about earlier right in front of your face. But you're so busy fighting with each other over the idea of protecting the oppressor that you won't even make sure that you take the oppressor down and protect yourselves and protect your children. So, I don't know. That's all that I got for today. I think at this point, if I go any further, this is me talking and not Holy Spirit. So I'm done for today. Thank you all for being on so much. I very much so appreciate you. Normally we would do our shout out, but no shout out for today. Just we're going to go ahead and come to a close. Tadah Maishapachia, thank you for being on again. I pray that everything in your household as well. We're praying that you guys are able to make it through. Hopefully, not just you able to stay inside and stay as warm as you can. Even where I am, to be honest, it's a little cold even where I'm standing right now. That being said, hopefully you're able to stay as warm as you can. Prayerfully, you're able to stay in touch with each other. And, just hopefully you got your food and everything in order. If you're somewhere where it hasn't touched down yet, I know in the Northeast, at least down to where I am, I know it's kind of crazy out there. It's getting to a place where one of them places where if it keeps on going, you're gonna be waiting. I'm 6'5" and a half. I'm probably gonna be waiting up to here if it keep on going. Right now, it's probably about down here, but it's going strong. And they said it's supposed to go all day. So we hope that you guys stay safe and stay connected. We had this recorded, and so if you watch this later on, I know there's some persons that have no signal. So on top of some of the other stuff, you may not even be able to connect the context. So we'll be in prayer for you guys all day. Thank you to everybody who was with us on prayer and all the different things we've done the last couple of days. We appreciate you so much. Thank you and we will see you tomorrow. We have early rise of Bible study session tomorrow, 6:30 a.m. New York time, followed by 8 a.m. New York time. We'll have at 8 a.m. New York time, we will have our live session tomorrow. 8 p.m. New York time, we'll have the live session in the evening, #Real Talk. And then at 9 p.m. New York time, we'll have our project management meeting. All right, and today is supposed to be the day. If you haven't told us yet, at least tell us, let us know. Or we're supposed to have a donation if you're planning on joining us in Eastern Tennessee for Passover. So we do still have some spots. May or may not be some spots afterwards, but it's first come, first serve. So for those of you who are planning on coming, if you haven't filled out the form, or if somebody hasn't gotten back to you, whatever, just make sure you reach out and let us know. But for the most part, I think we've gotten word from everybody who says they're coming and in some way, shape, or form. So, Yechava Achaba, or sorry, anai achava at Yechava. In other words, I love you with the love of Yechava, Israel. Remain strong. Keep on doing what you're supposed to do. You said it's -5 degrees over there in Ohio. Yeah, I heard even before it snowed yesterday, I was told in Detroit it was like -20 something. so, um, so yeah, so we're praying for you all. Obviously, it's it was in a negative last night, and now it's even on the porch. We got an awning and everything over the porch, and I tried to go out there a couple of times, and it hasn't been the greatest experience. Just trying to go a few feet, it hasn't been the greatest experience. So hopefully you all are doing well. Continue to do well. Take care of each other. I heard in North Carolina you might be dealing with black ice more so than snow, but whatever the case is, wherever you are, we're hoping that you do well. I don't know about Texas area and stuff. If it goes down in that area, please make sure you're safe over there. You know how persons act when it's going on down there. But love you all. Thank you. Take care of yourselves. Do what you're supposed to do. We will be back tomorrow. We'll be dealing with Revelation chapter 6, verses 5 and 6, and we'll deal with the third horseman, and then hopefully we'll see you for the rest of the activities of the day. That being said, thank you again. We love you much. We'll talk to you soon. And remember, as always, we give our honor and praise to the Most High. We give our praise and honor to Him for my wife, the Honorable Maya, who lives a life that's able to be honored. And as always, remember that you are loved, you are necessary, you are majestic, you are fearfully and wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. All right, Shalom, Rayashan Shalom, or if you're using the Israelite calendar, Shabbat Shalom. We'll talk with you soon. Peace. Take care.